Dudes, you guys are gonna go back in time.
Yeah! You are going to have the most excellent adventure through history.
Who are you guys?
We're you, dude! No way. No way. Yes way, Ted!
Look, we know how you feel. We didn't believe it either when we were you, and we us said what we us are saying right now.
Okay, wait. If you guys are really us, what number are we thinking of?
69, dudes!
Welcome to the Objective Secure podcast. My name's Mike.
Hi, I'm Emma.
This is episode 69, Excellent Adventure. We're going to be exploring the adventure that has been Objective Secured for the last 5 years on the anniversary of 5 years since the website started.
Is today the anniversary?
It's pretty close to it. It's as close as the podcast is actually going to sit.
Well, actually, I think it may sit next Wednesday for our live may actually be the anniversary.
Really? I know it's around now.
Okay, I think it might be next Tuesday.
I'm not sure.
The 9th.
Obviously, I thought it was the 7th.
Well, now I'm looking at it going, maybe it was the 5th. How can we find that out?
I'm sure that if I go back onto the website
So
and
it's just gonna look at-
go back to the archives, because we do have a link if you're interested in going back that far. If you go back to objectivesecure.com.au on the right-hand side and you scroll down, you can actually filter it by month. And the month of June 2015 is the furthest it goes back. And I think there's 14 posts on the website for June 2015.
Because we were onto it then and posted more often.
Yeah, pretty much. 9th of June.
Ah, I was right.
You're right. I thought it was the 7th.
Yeah.
So there you go.
So it'll be next Tuesday. Maybe we should do next Wednesday night's live on Tuesday instead.
Maybe. Anyway, I just thought it all, like the stars aligned when I found that Bill and Ted's clip, and, I think it all worked really well. So yeah, here we are. We're going to talk a little bit about the stuff that we've seen and learned over the last 5 years of doing what we do, how we've grown, how we've changed, and what we're hoping to see happen in the future.
Well, I also wanted to
And find out when the Mongols invaded China, for those of you who understand the reference from Bill and Ted's from the intro.
Okay, I didn't. I think I want less about where we've come and where we're going. I suppose we can touch on that. But I wanted to sort of touch on some of the highlights and what we've seen in kind of the world of gaming in the 5 years that we've been doing this.
Well, a lot's happened in that 5 years. We've seen new games released, editions change. Multiple game systems have had that evolution over that 5 year period.
A couple of game systems have stopped.
Yep. So there's a lot that's happened in those 5 years. And yeah, we'll cover some of that tonight while we eagerly anticipate
the next edition,
which is probably the best place to move straight into for the news. If you have been living under a rock and you're listening to this, I don't know where you were, because the
We've talked about it twice already.
Well, the internet. No, we haven't on the podcast. It happened. We published the last podcast. Episode 68 came out, and then like 4 days later, they did the big announcement. So, if you've been living under a rock, episode 68 saw us cover Harlequins. And then we, on the Saturday after that was released, we had Warhammer 40,000 9th edition announced.
Yeah. Now, are you sure it's 9th edition?
Yes. And I'm just going to move on from that because you've told me to let things go, and I'm going to let it go. The release itself was backed with video content. They've done live streams for it. They've had some of the community playtesters do a video of it now. Again, a lot of vagaries, but that's what they want. They want to build hype for it.
Of course.
I saw someone. Well, I didn't say saw. I spoke to someone, I should say, who was saying to me that he watched the video of the playtesters saying, this is what they like about it and this is what they don't like about it. And he said, I'm very, very worried. I said, why is that? And he said, oh, well, all of the people in that video are kind of your casual narrative fun gamers. Where are the competitive gamers? I said, you're not looking at it the right way. He said, what do you mean? I said, all the people in that video are the people who do podcasts and YouTube channels and have a public presence that the community watches and follows. That does, and yes, some of them are narrative players, and guys like Tabletop Tactics like to skirt the line between narrative and competitive because they do both.
Yeah.
But they've openly come out numerous times and said if they had their way and they had to pick one, they'd play narrative. They prefer the fun side of it. Although Lawrence is a shark when it comes to competitive.
That's what I was just thinking.
The fact is that of the 30 to 40 playtesters in the world, we saw like 6 or 7 of them in the video, and all the competitive players probably don't have their own YouTube channels and Facebook streams and podcasts and that sort of stuff. They might get interviewed for those, but they don't. They're not community content creators. They are gamers.
Yeah.
So of course they're not going to be on those sorts of videos. It's been interesting watching the community reaction, and once again we could have easily played the Chicken Little clip from a few years ago when 8th edition dropped about the sky falling, and that would have been an apt. We should have just recorded this and said episode 69, go and listen to episode whatever that was, because it's the same thing just 3 years later.
Well, it's not. And there is a big difference with this in that it's not a complete...
It's an 8.5, not a reset.
Well, it's not even an 8.5. It is 9, okay? It's edition 9.
Well,
but it's not a complete reset. So all the books that have just come out, they're all still going to be valid according to them. I don't know anything that you guys don't know either. But whereas 8th edition was wipe the slate clean, let's start again.
Yeah, and they've only done that once before, which was the transition from 2nd to 3rd. And then the books in 3rd crossed over into 4th, and then some of the 4th crossed into 5th, and because some armies didn't get an update.
Yeah.
The Dark Eldar book was released at the start of 3rd, and then they didn't get a book until the tail end of 5th. They played with their original 3rd edition codex through all of 3rd, all of 4th, and a good chunk of 5th. It was over 10 years, I believe, for that book. Most books last 3 to 5.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, this... And that was kind of what I was saying with with it being 8.5, not 9. Yes, it is the 9th publication of an edition of Warhammer 40,000, but it's more of an update rather than a reboot, which is obviously what a lot of people were worried about with what happened with Warhammer Fantasy Battles and the Age of Sigmar transition, which maybe wasn't as handled as well as it could have been by the management at the time.
Yeah.
We'll cover that in the topic because that actually happened while we were doing what we do. So yeah, new Warhammer 40k is coming. There's a new website you can go and check out. It's basically warhammer40000.com, as in Warhammer the word, the number 40000.com. And it took the community all of 10 seconds to start ripping images off of it, photoshopping them and adjusting them and taking some of the filters off to be able to see what some of the new models were like. And then Games Workshop 24 hours later went, okay, enough of that, here's... And they basically gave us proper high-res photos of them, which was, nice, rather than having to, look and squint and whatnot. They even, on the 24th of May, did a Photoshop of a Necron canoptic spider made out of a potato, in reference to the potato camera photos that we've been getting, where people somehow manage to use a mobile phone and then blur the photo when they're trying to share it on social media. So we got to look at the new Intercessors, the new Necron Warriors, the Scorp Tech Destroyers. There's a new Primaris Lieutenant, and then obviously there's the Silent King previews, and the new Satan, and the new Monolith, and all that other sort of stuff. It all looks pretty amazing. If you haven't checked it out, you can go and see it all on the community site. And I'm still going to sit to my estimate that by last weekend of June, first week of July, is when I'm still betting on the release. I hope it's then, because then we can coordinate the event schedule to run for the rest of the year.
Well, yeah, I mean, our plan is, at this point in time, I guess from August onwards we'll be running
Yeah.
events.
The July one, I actually spoke to them today to try and work out, because obviously we got told July had been cancelled. I spoke to them today and said, well, with all the changes happening, what are the odds? And the response I got back was, no, you can't, because the council haven't decided that they want to reopen the option to make new bookings or amend existing ones. They'll cancel them for you, but they won't let you do anything until the council says otherwise. So we're kind of still sat in limbo.
It's frustrating. I find it frustrating because so many other councils
Have just gone, yep, let's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we know Outpost is back happening again. I'd crit that, which is... So Outpost is City of South Perth. I'd crit that, I believe, is City of Bayswater. So they're up and running, no issue. And yet City of Armidale is... I mean, they're being really cautious, and I can totally understand that. But, yeah, they're really holding back, and...
I'm hopeful that
They haven't even reopened dog parks.
I'm hopeful come Monday, once those restrictions actually come into play here in Western Australia, the changes to those restrictions, I should say, that we're going to see the staff back to the office to be able to start making these adjustments and changes. Because as far as when I spoke to our representative at the council, she was still working from home. So
I don't know. I actually think a lot of places they're doing that hybrid model with slowly reintroducing staff.
So that they're not having 50 people in a small space. We'll see. Anyway, we'll move on. Psychic Awakening Engine War is now up for pre-order at the time of recording. Knights, the new Mechanicus units. I'll try and say the names.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's the Cerberus Raiders and the Sulphur Hounds. They're spelled Cerberus, Serberys.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's Cerberus.
Yep, I would say so.
And then the Taraxi Sterilizers and Skystalkers. Again, spelt with lots of Z's and X's and PTs and all sorts of weird stuff. And the Archaeocopter as well. So...
Yeah.
It's funny, these models, I've seen a few people go, they've gone very Leonardo da Vinci-esque with that sort of Batwing type affair. Jess
I was
Goodwin's,
thinking steampunk, but
yeah, it is. No, that's exactly what the reference is in relation to. The designs are done by Jess Goodwin, Jez, and they were done a couple of years ago. So these designs aren't super, they're not super old, but they're also not...
They're not brand new.
Yeah, they're not just pulled out, yep, we're going to do this now. So they have been thought out. I think they're an interesting design choice because it kind of hints at how the Mechanicum are stuck in their ways because they don't develop new technology, they just keep rebuilding old stuff. So they're not sleek, jet-winged things. They look kind of clumsy and flimsy looking at the same time, and I think so.
They look flimsy.
Which one, the Archaeocopter or the Taraxi?
Any of them.
Look, the Taraxi for me look really awkward and gangly because of the way those wings are set up. I like the look, but they're not that sort of sleek hunting bird thing for me. And the Archaeocopter is just weird. Like it's got legs, it's got flapping wings, it doesn't scream nimble, agile fighter to me, despite the rules previews we've seen.
I really like them. I really like the Tech Priest.
Oh, I think he's the Manipulus. Yeah, big fatty. He, I don't know if he's actually had a separate model. He was a release for Kill Team in one of the Kill Team boxes at first.
Yeah, well, he's now available separately for the first time.
Oh, okay, cool. So yeah, this is the same model then.
Yeah.
He's been a little while coming, actually. So, and then the Sulphur Hounds and the Raiders as well with their mechanical horses. I really like the fact that I'm assuming the Sulphur Hounds are the ones which have flamethrowers for faces on those horses. I
would say so, yeah.
I like the idea of horses with flamethrower faces. I think that's an interesting modelling choice.
I don't think that they're flamethrowers.
They are.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
The ones with the pistols and the chrome helmets.
Yeah.
If you look at there's nozzles
I see.
and stuff under the chin. And the rules that I've seen definitely talk about them having flamethrowers for faces. So, yeah, we've got all of that on for pre-order at the moment, which leaves us with just War of the Spider and Pariah still to arrive. And part of me was hoping that they'd release those before we had Ninth drop, but I actually am now half assuming that Pariah is going to drop around the same time as Ninth, because the models that they've previewed, the Pariah and Ephrael Stern, the Sisters of Battle, are coming out in the same book as the new Illuminator Caesaris, with a big Necron character that we all got the preview of. And he's in the new style. And I'm trying to figure out whether hopefully it's all been written so that whatever information is in the new Necron book and in the core rulebook has been thought of concurrently in regards to what's in Pariah. Because if Pariah happens before Ninth, like in terms of story, then they logically have to, although they should logically want to release Pariah first. But then that's a new model from the new range. So I'm kind of going, like, how are they going to cram it in? I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. The new Necron stuff looks so good. I really like it. It means like I've got a Necron army sat there waiting. I painted back in...
Of course you do.
Well, I painted it back in 2016 for the ATC that year in New South Wales. The year we finished second for the first time. And it's been pulled out, I think, 3 times since then. And while the models are a bit long in the tooth, those models, the sculpts are from 3rd edition. I'm quite looking forward to putting them on the table and giving them a try with the new rules. I've got a ready to pull out of the cabinet army. It's great. So, you might see me across the table with some Necrons from time to time. Moving on, moving away from 40k for a second, I wanted to quickly touch on the release of the Tau Aircast for Aeronautica. I think that game's kind of, pun intended, flown under the radar. It's a really good game. It's a hybrid of the old Aeronautica. It's hex-driven.
Yeah.
So it's not as fluid. It's I suppose closer to a board game than a tabletop game. But up until now, it's only really had the Imperium and the Orcs. This is their sort of first step out into the world of Xenos. And I think going Tau is an interesting option because I think everyone assumed it'd be Eldar first. And they've gone Tau.
You assumed it would be Eldar first.
In past games, the Eldar, particularly for air battles, have always been kind of in the first 2 or 3 because they're always touted as the air supremacy force. So it's really nice to see the Tau getting some love. I think the models are going to be the Barracuda, and then it's got a couple of variants as well, and then the Tiger Shark and its variants.
Yeah.
Including the AX-10 or the AX-10.
AX-10.
It's always been known to the AX-10 for me from 40k, which is the Titan Hunter, which means we could see other bigger, planes for it to actually engage, because I don't know what will take the shot from those twin railguns. But
I'm not a fan.
You don't like the Tau aesthetic, do you?
I don't. I try really hard. Because I do like some of the people who play Tau, but I just can't like your models.
Now I know you're lying.
I said some. I didn't say who. I said some.
No, I always find the Tau to be one of those factions that have always been quite polarizing to people because there's a lot of...
I don't like panel lining.
You don't like the panel lining?
At all.
Oh, okay.
On anything. It really bugs me when you put panel lining on your models.
Really?
Yep.
Why is that?
Just don't like it.
Huh. That's interesting. There's a lot of that happens with these sorts of models. There you go. I didn't know that.
I don't like panel lining?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how. It's clearly you don't listen.
I
say it often enough.
You may say it, but me doing it isn't going to change. So
I didn't say it would.
So yeah, check out the Tau Aircast. They're coming for Aeronautica very shortly. I like their... What makes the Tau Aircast awesome? They're flexible, agile, and they love missiles. That's their 3 dot points.
What makes them not awesome? They're ugly and they have panel lining.
Okay, we're going to move on now before you upset some of the listeners.
Don't hate me.
Oh no, there's going to be plenty of you who are sat there going, yep, I agree with her. bloody tower. I want to talk very quickly about the Crusade releases that they've sort of previewed for us over the last 24 hours or so. Crusade has already been one that a lot of the community's perked up at and gone, hey, cool, you know, we're going to have a way of seeing our 40k characters and armies evolve and being able to play a campaign over, not necessarily in a structured manner, like being able to go and play pickup games and then have my army evolve and grow over that time as well. And the article kind of hints at some of what can be achieved with it. Like, it gives you an example of a cool weapon you might find, and there's you know, characters that take too bad an injury. There's, you know, a preview there on a D6 chart to show what can potentially happen to a character. The bit that's most people got hung up on, which I wanted to talk about, though, was the increased supply limit.
Do you know what I've got really hung up on that I can't actually let go of to be able to listen to what you're talking about? I really do not like the cartoon logo.
Okay, I want to talk about that as well.
Oh, good, because it's really bothering me. Do you want to talk about that now? Because then maybe I'll be able to let it go to listen to the other thing.
Sure, we can go to the logo.
All right, I don't like it.
Why not?
It's really upsetting me.
Why don't you like it?
Because I feel like it's undermining the people who are likely to play in this kind of gaming system, and yeah.
I honestly didn't expect you to be the one to start that.
That's how it feels.
I don't have a problem with it at all.
No, we're very different people.
No, but everyone I've seen complaining about it claims that Games Workshop are getting woke and they're selling it to kids, and it's
oh no, that doesn't.
That it's aimed at the, you know, they're taking away the grim dark type stuff.
Yeah, no, I didn't go anywhere like that at all.
That's where most of the negativity has gone.
Yep, no, mine is just that it feels like we've got serious players over here that do have kind of the darker drawings and imagery and that kind of stuff, and then for people who want to play little fluff games over here, we're going to give you some cartoons and we're going to give you some Comic Sans text.
Do you think it's patronising?
Yeah, it feels patronising. That's the word I was looking for. It does.
Okay. That's interesting because it's the same art style the community page has had for the last 3 years.
Yeah,
like, if you go back through and look at all of every single article where they've included illustration, it's like you see the ones where there's a guardsman, a space marine, and an orc in a line to go to the checkout, and like all the COVID pictures of social distancing show the different characters in the shops, and you know, there's a whole bunch of that stuff. Like, this is the art style that they've used for 3 years now on the community site. So this just...
Why is it bothering me now and not 3 years ago? Don't know.
Like I say, I've seen plenty of people complaining, going, "Oh, they're taking away the grim dark." Have you watched the trailer? Because that paints a very different picture of grim dark than, you know, than them taking it away from it. I just think that this is intended as this is the easy, like, you know, it's obviously aimed at a younger audience. It's 100% aimed at a younger audience. But everyone who says that Games Workshop's games are aimed at 8 to 15-year-olds is friggin' dreaming, because they're not aimed at 8 to 15-year-olds. They're aimed at 15 to 25-year-olds.
I don't know that they are actually aimed at 15 to 25-year-olds. I think they're just... I don't know that you can limit it to that.
No, I've maybe not limit it, but I certainly don't think the age group starts at 8 to 10. I do think that having a lighter experience on the website from a social, like a exposure perspective, makes a lot of sense. From a marketing standpoint, I mean.
See, for me, it doesn't at all, because it's not what the... I understand what you're saying, and I understand that to have something that's lighter and more friendly looking is more publicly acceptable. It doesn't represent what the game is. But
this art doesn't appear anywhere else other than the website.
Page.
And even then, it is just essential. Oh, there might be a little bit on the web store.
But is it a good representation of the community and of the game system? Is it a good representation of the brand?
But if you go through the rest of the community site, it's not the only style of art they use. They do use the rest of the other art.
I know. And then you scroll down and it's got obviously the picture of the models, which is a photograph and that kind of stuff. It just...
But even like on the page I've got open now, if I scroll down, there's a post from the 15th of February 2019 for some bizarre reason. The Toy Fair for New York as just one of the suggested posts for me to look at. And that's got artwork from Blackstone Fortress, which is, lightning crackling from someone's hands and then like a leg with a saber instead of a lower leg, and like it's the same grim dark stuff. Like it exists in the same space. I feel like it's the same people complaining about the actual Warhammer logo with the R tripping over the edge of the border.
Yeah, that's bothering me too.
But it's been like that. Like we got a poster right here above you. You can see the R trips over into the.
Well, don't tell me that because it's up in my woman's study.
And it's the same with the A not being centered.
Shut up.
It's interesting you didn't like the art. I didn't expect that.
No.
I don't.
And
like from an opinion point of view, I don't care for it because it doesn't do anything for me. But I understand why it's there. I'm not fazed by it though.
Of all the things to be bothered about, I probably should let it go. But it does bother me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the new logo and the art style that they've been using for these community posts? Interested to hear. I'll send emails, Emma's email address to those of you who want to complain.
Mike.
I want to go back to increased supply limit.
All right, yeah,
because
okay,
this is what's caused a few people to get upset. One requisition point, one RP. I'm assuming it's a requisition point.
Yeah.
Purchase this requisition at any time. Increase your Crusade forces supply limit by 5 power. 5 power. That has upset many persons over the last 12 hours since they published this. 24 hours since they published this. Because it's power level.
Yeah, with a maximum power rating of 50.
And I can't help but feel like it's the narrative stuff. Did you guys not realise this is what they did in 8th with narrative? Like, narrative was always power level? So
the issue is the fact that it's working on power?
Yep.
So it's not the fact that you can increase it by 5 power, which is actually 10% of the maximum?
No, well, where did you see a maximum?
Take part in the Crusade campaign, just under the getting
started.
started.
Oh, yeah. Create an order of battle.
We're using one of the 7 factions with a maximum power rating of 50. Because I'm looking at it going, well, that's 10% difference for one RP. That's quite significant.
Well, 50 power. So in 8th edition, it was basically you times it by 20.
20, yeah. So that's 1,000
That's 1,000 points. Now, if that's where you start using their system at 1,000 points under the narrative spectrum, it'd be easy enough to just turn around and go, cool, I don't want to use power level. I'm going to replace that. Instead of 5 power, it's 100 points. Job done. No, 125 points. 100 points, yeah.
I don't know what you times.
I don't know. I don't know.
125.
I don't know what I did there. No. So you can just do that if you want to. I think there's a bunch of gamers out there who have spent the last 30 years playing with points, me included. And when they released power levels for 8th edition, it was, no. We play points because points is granular and it's what we've always done. And I think that there's a percentage of gamers out there who feel like there's now a line being drawn in the sand to say, are you a competitive player or are you...
Well, we had this with some of the events in the past, didn't we? Where
we've tried power a couple of times to run events, and while the events are fun, they do change the game and that was partly because 8th edition, they never updated power to begin with. So you had these weird situations.
Well, that's going to be interesting to see whether or not power gets updated.
They've said that that's something that they acknowledged they hadn't done and that they needed to do because of this system now for 9th that had to be maintained. So
how's that going to, if all the books are current and continuing, there'll just be an amendment that says
I'm assuming,
this is what...
Well, chapter approved always did the points adjustments.
Yeah. I was just getting to that point in my head as I worked through
I could see you working through it.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that we'll get a day 1 FAQ.
Yeah.
Sorry, not a day 1 FAQ, a day 1 errata. And then we'll probably get an FAQ 2 weeks in.
Or a day 2 FAQ. Yeah. No, it does take a little while.
And I think the errata will be to update. Like, it could just be one big document that goes, cool, here's all of the armies. These are all the adjustments for points and power. Bang, here you go.
What does All your opponent need to do is quickly calculate the power rating of their match play army, and then you simply complete a crusade mission. Any difference in your army's respective crusade scores, your opponent's score would be 0 if it's not a crusade army, will accrue them some bonuses to help balance things out. What does that mean in English?
Without knowing enough about Crusade, it's hard to say.
Okay. Well,
So
that makes me feel better.
from what I can gather,
Doesn't matter whether or not you're playing against someone who's got a crusade army and it's less than 50 power. You still get points.
yeah. So I think it's kind of the leveling up of your own army in the games that you play. It's relatively simple to convert an army from points to power because the data sheets tell you what that's worth, and it's pretty straightforward. The fact that if you read the getting started part, it also talks about you draw units from one of 7 factions.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is you get Imperium, Chaos, Eldar, Tyranids, Orcs, Necrons, and Tau. So, from the looks of narrative, they're actually doing away with a lot of the faction-specific keywords as well. So, if you want to play an Eldari Crusade, you can kind of... And this is kind of... It harkens back to narrative where they took away a lot of the restrictions in 8th edition anyway. I think this is part of that encouragement.
Yeah.
But it's like I say, I think it's also upset a lot of people who were looking forward to using this system in a points environment because they didn't consider themselves competitive gamers, and this almost feels like, and I've had someone say this to me, I want to use points, but I'm not a competitive player. Now they're making me do power.
I wonder why that's an issue for people.
I think, like I say, if you've been gaming a long time, you might just be used to points, or it might just be a concern that power is too easy. Because obviously with power ratings, you get a unit and it's worth 10 power, and then every now and again there's an option within it that adds power, but more often than not, none of the options add power rating unless you add extra models.
So it doesn't matter what upgrades you...
So no. So
Okay.
if you... And there are some really weird scenarios that can come about as a result of power ratings. So, like if you talk about... I'm just going to grab my Harlequin Codex. So the Harlequin entries work exactly like everyone else. I think the power rating for the squad... where is it? It is... So Death Jester, for example, is power 3. Has no options, he's going to be power 3. Solitaire, power 5, no options, fine. The Troop is 5 power, and then that's 5 models. And for every extra model you add to the squad, it's 1 extra power.
Yeah.
So you can end up with a power rating of 12 for 12 models.
Uh-huh.
And at that point, it doesn't matter what you arm them with.
Yeah.
They can all have fusion pistols and all have Harlequin's Caresses, or they can all have shuriken pistols and blades. They do 2 very different things on the table, but they cost the same power.
And I'm assuming that there's difference in points level for those.
11 points for the blade and shuriken, and 25. 7, 14, plus 11, 20. Yeah, and 25 for the fusion caress combo. So that's, I think, where a lot of the concern comes from.
Per model or per unit?
What do you mean?
The 25 points.
That's per model.
Yeah, I thought that.
Yeah.
Well, that's quite significant for 12 models.
Yeah, it is, because you've got a unit that goes from 132 points to a unit that's worth 300.
Yeah.
But they're the same power.
Yeah.
And I think that polarization is what's going to be...
The problem is that we don't actually know that that's still what's going to happen.
No, exactly, we don't. But I think that's gotten into people's heads. I did say to one person, though, the best way that you can resolve with power, make it WYSIWYG.
Yeah, definitely.
Because as soon as you turn around and go, you can't proxy model, you can't counts as weapons, power doesn't become an issue. Because there's going to be there's going to be 2 types of hobbyists out there. The ones that magnetize everything, at which point, if they're going to go and spend the time and effort and money to get all the weapon options, to get all the magnets, and to do that prep work, then good on them. There's the other half, which are going to glue on the stuff. I suppose there's 3 types. There's the ones, the second group are the ones who are just going to build what they think looks cool and they're going to use it that way. The third group are the ones that chase points changes and all the rest of it, and they'll be cutting arms off and, constantly upgrading the army here and there. If you're
and
going
the fourth type is the type that's only going to play this and therefore will build them to be
whatever they've
to be the maximum effectiveness of that particular model
within the models they've bought.
Yeah.
So I think that divide is the bit that's concerning people, because like I've got Harlequin squads that are going to be 178 points because they're a balance between the cost of the unit versus the effect of the unit on the table. If I'm playing Crusade, it makes sense for me to just rip all the swords and shuriken off and just whack all the special weapons onto them, because why wouldn't I? But then I can't use that unit both ways.
I think, you said in the opening, and obviously we've said it multiple times when new things are being released and there's this talk of things, and there's kind of this fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
And that does create a Chicken Little Skies Falling situation. That whether that's a vocal minority, I'm not sure.
Well, that's it. The internet is just a place where you can go and scream into the blackness and the void, and
everybody hears it.
And some people will scream along and others will ignore.
Yeah. So what I'm wondering is whether or not what we can do to try and change that perception within our community. So I think maybe we need to create some kind of post asking people to share what they're excited about with the new edition coming out. Or
there's a lot to be excited about. So,
but I just think maybe, and I know that we've not made fun of, that's not the right word, but we've highlighted that kind of the standard reaction that we see from gamers,
which is every codex, every
time.
Yeah.
And I suppose we can talk about this in the next section, but of this fear, it's going to be awful, they're going to ruin the whole game, it's going to suck, I may as well just get rid of my whole army now, I'm going to have to go buy a whole new army, I can't play my chosen army anymore. Oh, actually, maybe it's okay. Oh, this is the best codex or best edition they've ever done. And the process does not happen that quickly.
No.
But
it's because the releases don't happen that quickly.
No, this is true. But we highlight the fact that there is that response to it. So maybe instead of highlighting that, maybe instead we should be trying to highlight what is to be excited about it.
That's true.
And, and maybe some of the things that aren't great with 8th edition that we're hoping that we'll see positive changes for 9th. Or maybe just what we're hoping to see in 9th.
Well, as we get more previews, I'm sure that the next podcast will cover these until we get the release.
Yeah.
All right.
But that's on you. You need to create a positivity post.
Okay. I'll do that tomorrow.
Sure, you say that, and then I end up doing it because you don't do it.
You're better at wording that sort of stuff than me.
Positivity post. That's all you have to write. Positivity.
I'm a gamer.
Take a picture of a post and write positivity post. Write something that you're excited about for 9th edition.
You might regret asking me to do that.
Go outside. There's a lamppost outside. Maybe wait till morning when it's light. It's a bit dark.
All right. Merch store. This snuck in under the radar as far as I'm concerned.
Well, it's still under the radar. I tried to look at it. I can't really see anything other than a cup and a couple of hoodies.
Have you actually clicked the link in it?
Of course I clicked the link in it.
Okay. So the Warhammer merchandise...
Of course, I'm just looking at a picture, aren't I?
The post happened on the 1st of June on the community site. And it didn't even send me a notification for this one. I didn't even see it. Someone sent me a message going, hey, have you seen this? And I've gone, oh, no. So there's now official merch that you can buy. Now, in the past, store openings have had merch from time to time.
Okay, it turns out I hadn't pressed the link.
No, you hadn't pressed the link? Okay.
Nope.
Warhammer World has had merch in store. Now, I've got a couple of mugs. I've got a Horus Heresy mug. I've got a First Company Terminator mug. I've got an Eye of Horus hat. I've got a Wordbearers t-shirt and those sort of bits and pieces. But you've never been... Like, when we were in Warhammer World last time, I wanted an Eldar shirt. And the only sizes they had in stock were extra small or 5XL.
Which they call a gamer large.
And none of those two sizes fit me. So, yeah, that led to me going, no, I don't get my Eldar shirt. So they've just quietly released this merch store. Now, we were looking at it before we went to the recording, and it appears it's only in euros. I can't find a way of changing the currency on it. So I'm assuming it's a print-on-demand type thing where...
Yeah, it looks like it.
You kind of order what you want and what size you want, and then they produce it and ship it to you, which is not uncommon. We do it. That's what our merch store looks like. what I do like is that when you go to the homepage, which there'll be a link in the show notes for to go and check out, it's broken up so that you can go Armies of the Imperium, Armies of Chaos, and Xenos armies, and then within those they haven't been like sort of stingy with what's available. So naturally, I went to the Xenos section first. There are 5 pages which have roughly 20 items per page, and they range from Necrons, Orcs, Tau, Tyranids, and the Eldar. And there are shirts and beanies and mugs and posters and I think I saw laptop cases there. Phone cases.
Phone covers, yeah. Mugs. I mentioned those, didn't I?
They call them joggers. We'd call them tracky dacks.
We would not call them tracky
We're
dacks.
Aussies, we would. You know, they've actually got a decent rate. They've got posters and all sorts of bits and pieces, and it's cool. It's not cheap, but there's some stuff here that, were it not for the fact that, yeah, they're a little bit on the expensive side for me. Like, I'm looking at the Drakari laptop case. It was €27. Now, I don't know what postage would be, because I haven't played with it that closely. But I can't imagine it's going to be super cheap coming from Europe.
Yeah.
You know, the Craftworld's backpack's €30. The Craftworld's Warlock hoodie, €45.
Yeah. And that €45.
You're now talking it's $100. By the time,
no, it's not. Oh, I suppose
by the time you get
add in
shipping, it's
yeah.
$100.
Because I mean, the exchange rate is not too bad at the moment. It's only about €75. Sorry, $75 for €45. But that's still $75 for a hoodie.
Yeah, and like I say, that's before you go to postage. So
I was expecting it to be 90. So compared to that, it seems. Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of. I really like it, but at the same time, I was kind of heartbroken when I looked at the price and just went, oh.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can't see me buying anything from it anytime soon. But at the same time, I really want to. So, which just makes it really tricky.
It does.
We've got family in England. Maybe it's more cost effective to get it shipped there, because I've just put a hoodie into the cart and gone to the shipping section. How much do you think my Craftworld's Warlock hoodie, extra large in black, €45 for the hoodie? How much is shipping to Australia?
I'd say about €30.
It's €25, so it's a €70 hoodie.
Yeah.
Which is going to be about $100. Would be my guess. Because there's only one option, it's track shipping, which I'm assuming is DHL or UPS or something to that effect. So, that, yeah, it's a blessing and a curse, because I do genuinely think that I could easily purchase a dozen items off this without even breaking a sweat.
Oh, you would when they arrive.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's hard. I really like some of the stuff. Like there's just again, I'll stick to the Eldar stuff because that's where my heart is. There's a Dark Reaper mug, which has got all the original artwork from Jez Goodwin on it, which I really like. It's €12. You get the T-shirt and the phone case, €17 for a phone case. Anyway, I really like it. But go and check it out. There'll be a link in the show notes. If you can figure out a way of changing it over to another currency other than euros, let us know. Last bit of news. And this is one I wanted to save to the last because I'm really excited about.
I really love that I specifically asked for notes so that when we do these things, I gave
you all the links.
You did, but in the wrong order.
My last bit of news. Masters of the Universe. He-Man is getting a board game.
Yeah.
So this was announced by Cool Mini or Not on the 29th of May. And Cool Mini or Not is proud to announce the licensing agreement with Mattel to create and publish Masters of the Universe, the board game, in North America, South America, and throughout Asia. Now, I'm assuming Australia falls into that Asia classification because that's normally where we get tacked into. The artwork that they've shown off is all the stuff from the 80s.
Yeah.
It was a poster you would actually get with the action figures because all the artwork on there shows the weird thighs and misproportioned torsos and all that sort of stuff. But the fact we're going to get a board game, I'm super excited. Like, I remember Castle Grayskull, which is shown in the background of this artwork, actually was on one of my very first games of Warhammer Fantasy. We used it as a piece of terrain because we didn't have terrain at the time, and it was like, hey, I've got Castle Grayskull. Is it in scale? Nope, don't care. Here we go. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what that board game looks like. There's a link to the article will be in the show notes as well, so you can go and check out the comments and stuff from Mattel and from Cool Mini or Not.
I don't know if it's possible to play it without holding your hands above your head and saying, by the power of Grayskull, I have the power.
I'm really keen to see this. The Kickstarter launches in 2021.
Oh, that's ages away. Why are we talking about it now?
It's called hype building.
No, it's just annoying. I think my positivity's all disappeared.
Apparently it
I'm not
has.
sure we should be doing this episode tonight. I'm just all cranky.
Anyway, Masters of the Universe, the board game. I'm really excited. I'm so looking forward to seeing it.
Just don't hold your breath waiting for it. You'll be same colour as the logo by the time we're finished. Bright blue.
2021 Kickstarter. And, I'm really keen for it. I just can't decide whether I go the good guys or the bad guys.
Well, let's see if you can decide to wait till it comes out, and then maybe you've got some. I think you've got some time up your sleeve to make the decision.
I've got so many questions about it, and they haven't told us anything about what it means. I'm assuming at some point they've got something that works in terms of a game that they've then had to pitch to Mattel and go, here's all the work we've done, here's what we want it to do, can we have your designs to make this little muscle-bound man with a sword?
Why would Mattel say no? Really? They've got a chance to make money from a game from an action figure that hasn't been around for 30 years.
30 plus years.
I'm going with 30.
Well, 1982 was the release of He-Man in North America, I believe. Since its inception in 1982. There you go.
Right.
So, very, very long time ago.
Not that long.
Well, it's almost as old as you, sweetheart.
Yes, I know. Not that long. That's my point.
Okay. Not that long ago.
No.
Anyway, we'll leave links to that and the merch store and a few other bits and pieces in the show notes on the website. You can go and check all those out. Have you got anything you want to cover for the news tonight, or shall we just jump into the topic?
I've got nothing.
Okay, topic it is. We'll be back in just a second. So 5 years in, or as close as...
Yeah, it's pretty darn close.
It might as well be. I'd say at this point in time, 5 years ago,
I was hounding you to hurry up and get it done.
Finalise the registrations and pay all the licensing and all that sort of stuff. And
the logo sorted. And
yeah, I was probably doing the logo at this time 5 years ago.
Yep.
Ironic that I'm back organising more logos at this time again for different merch and stuff. So... yeah, it's been 5 years since we decided to venture down this road. But at the time, I don't think the intent was to run events.
Well, I think it was... Yeah, I think it was to an extent.
Well, the first event that we hosted was November of that year.
Yeah.
And maybe... I don't think we'd had ATC at that point that year. Because that was... I'm actually wearing the jumper from that event. That was Hobart that year. So whether or not we talked about it and then I came back from Hobart, which would probably have been August or September.
Do you know what? It wasn't you coming back from Hobart. I think it was actually just prior to you going to Hobart.
Yeah.
because there were however many people from the ATC
Yeah, you're
team
right. We
in
were
our
all
back
here.
garden.
Yeah, we were. We were all here talking.
And you were whinging and moaning about the fact that there was no events here
Yeah.
in WA. And so
There
I
were the
told
8
you
of
to,
us here.
Yeah, so I
Yep.
told you to put your money where your mouth was, and if you wanted to run events, do one. And you said no, and then I'd said it however many times. You said no, but then 7 other people backed me up, and all of a sudden it was a good idea.
Look, I still know who was on that team that year, so I can lay it at their feet if you like. That's fine. So
I think you may have missed a subtle dig there. But we'll move on.
I'm just going to move past it. And
Yeah.
So, yeah, it started as an opportunity for us to run our first event, but to share some 40K thoughts.
And that was it. When we first started, that was all we were intending to do, was just 40K. And I know we're predominantly 40K,
Yeah.
but it has
We have
expanded.
tried to.
Obviously, with show for the 3 years prior to this, it was a bit bigger than just 40K.
Yeah. And we have seen a lot of changes, not just from Games Workshop, but from the wider community and from the manufacturers. And we've seen local hobby stores come and go in that time. We've seen quite a lot in those 5 years. So,
yeah, we definitely have seen a lot in those 5 years.
like Emma says, we were talking ATC when it all... I think around that time we probably made a call to spend the little bit of money at the start in terms of the initial web hosting and the logo and those sorts of bits and pieces. I think you and I decided it needed to be done in a way that was not just, we're going to run a tournament, and back then we were printing players packs and printing mission sheets and all that sort of stuff and scorecards and...
Yes, we were printing, oh my goodness, those paper score sheets. So prior to an event, I would go out and print all of the score sheets, and then for all of the different rounds. And so we'd have painting score sheets and round score sheets and sportsmanship score sheets. And I would sit there and I would obviously have to work out how many players we had, how many tables there were, how many rounds we had, work out how many we needed, score sheets we needed.
And then round it up because people always
double
lost
it
them.
at least because people lost them or couldn't work out how to fill them out properly. Then I have to sit there with the guillotine and cut them all up and then have separate labelled envelopes. These are game score sheets.
I only threw those envelopes out not that long ago. They've been sat there as a backup waiting for the technology to fail, and it's...
Don't say it.
Touch wood been pretty good.
And then I would go around for all of the events, for all the rounds, and I would hand them I would say, can I just get your attention for a minute? Make sure they were both looking at me. And then I would say...
You'd walk away and it'd just be...
They'd come up at the end and go...
How do I do this?
But you didn't give me one of those. I said, do you remember when I came over to the table and these are the exact words that I said to you? Oh, yes. That's when... Remember I gave you the piece of paper in your hand. No, you didn't do that. Yes, I did do that.
Because everyone else in the room got one. I just missed table 14 for some reason.
But here's another one.
Yep.
That and the fact that I'm not sure how many players have got a Women's Health and Wellbeing Service pen.
Yeah, that was... I don't know which year that was, but we had like 150 pens that were left over from your work changing logos.
Event, yeah.
And
no, it was I did it on purpose.
No, they were old logos.
No, they weren't.
Oh, there were definitely some that were old logos. In any case, yeah, by the end of the year, we didn't have a single pen.
No.
They never came back.
Oh, no, Russell brought me one back like 3 years later.
Yeah, I had one handed to me at it must have been a Crags event, that someone said, hey, do you need a pen to fill in your scorecard? And they've handed it to me and gone, it's my freaking pen. Where'd you get this from? I borrowed it from him.
That's so, right. The more people that know about the Women's Health Service, then the better.
So we have seen... I suppose the first thing to talk about then is the technology change that we've seen within the community. So social media has only grown in its prevalence with the way the community is able to communicate. Mm-hmm. And at the table, particularly for events, the way it's managed in terms of scoring and organising rounds and, you know, the sort of control and flow of data has significantly changed in those 5 years. It changed in less. It was more like 3.5 years, really.
Well, not ATC, WATC, not last year, the year before, I was still scoring everything with paper.
Oh, I was trying to work this out because 2017 was the year that I went to...
What year are we in?
2017 was the year I went to LVO.
Yeah.
And that was when we first started exploring Best Coast pairings.
Yeah, but Best Coast pairings couldn't handle
Team event,
the team
no.
event.
So the 2017 event was definitely done with pen and paper.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm 90% sure the 2018
2018
wasn't. It was done on Down Under Pairings because we hosted that and we actually had Diffie and Adam from Down Under Pairings here running it on...
Not for WATC, we didn't.
No, that was ATC, wasn't it?
I'm talking about WATC because that was the
that's
biggest
right.
year that we had, and I did it all by paper by myself
Yes,
while you played.
And that was because the implementation of teams in DUP hadn't been completed then. And at ATC that year was the first time it had been used.
Yeah.
So we used Best Coast pairings for the second half of 2017, and the straw that broke the camel's back with that one was January of 2018 when we ran First Blood with like 90 players, and then we couldn't export the data because they turned that option off without telling anyone because no one used it.
Yeah.
And then we had to manually copy out all of that data to try and work out who won the event.
And if you've come to any of our events or you've just listened to our podcast so you can tell what my personality type is like, we have a timetable in our players pack, and I think we should stick to it.
We do generally stay pretty close to it.
We stay pretty close, but I think it's really important that we stick to it, and I think that's part of the thing that we set when we first
Chess clocks
started.
have helped that.
Shut up. Part of the things. I've had a very long day at
I
work.
know.
And
I'm just having a joke. I'm just having a joke.
No, I'm cranky. Okay.
All right.
So don't push me on chess clocks. Anyway, not today. So. Now I've lost my train of thought. Oh, yes, right. So when we very first started, one of the things that we said is if we're going to run events, they need to be done as a professional event. It can't be, well, you rock up and it's supposed to start at 8, but actually your TO doesn't turn up till 9 and somebody's forgotten this and just a bit of a schmozzle.
We wanted to try and make it as good as we could.
We did. We wanted to try and run a well-organised event. And part of that for me is making sure that things run to time because that's an important thing for me. So then for that particular event when we had 90 players and you are panicking because you can't export it and you're trying to work out how you can then manually pull everything out and manually work out who
It added half an hour to the day.
Yeah.
At least, maybe 40 minutes.
I'm there trying to run around, get the room pulled down and while trying to distract from the thing that we're running half an hour late because I don't like the fact that the whole software has just gone belly up on us. So it was really not a fun experience.
No, that day was rough.
Because I think it had actually crashed a couple of times during the day as well because we had 90 players and...
I'm on the other side of the world, so there's no support for it.
Yeah.
Which is why Down Under Pairings was so nice when we had people who were within a time zone of us if something went wrong.
Plus also someone who you know really quite well, so you could just ring him.
Good personal
I know
friend.
you're at a wedding, but I need you to fix this.
The amount of times I called him and he went, I'm on the train, give me 10 minutes, and he would open his laptop on the train, log in and fix it. It was, I have to thank Diffie profusely for those times.
Yeah, definitely.
I still remember, though, when we were first trying to work out a scoring system back in this time 5 years ago, there were a handful, I want to say it was called Torrent of Fire, was one that was touted.
Yeah.
War Score was the one we ended up going with,
yeah.
and there was a third one that I can't remember. I want to say it was Tawny Keeper in its infancy, but it wasn't called Tawny Keeper. Maybe it was Tawny Keeper.
It was Tawny Keeper, yeah.
War Score, I was able to get a free download for, and it was...
Because we're tight.
Yep. We had no money for it at the time.
That's it. We try and keep the events down, cost as low as possible.
And the software itself was really good because you could build it to run anything you wanted and you could completely customize it, but it meant doing it every frickin' time.
Well, not only doing it every time, but then everything was done with pen and paper.
Yeah, so you had to manually...
Had to be manually written on paper, manually collected, manually entered, and then you had to go and chase up the people who hadn't entered and work out...
Yeah.
Particularly for painting scores and stuff like that.
Oh, jeez.
There are 60 men in this room, and often men. Sometimes there are some women there too, but
there are more these days.
Yeah, there are 60 men in this room, and I've got 25 painting scores.
Yeah. Now I can walk around and go, "You haven't done it."
Yeah.
I can see you haven't done it.
It is a shame though, because I don't get any painting
votes anymore.
There were a couple of years that
you did all right with the painting score.
Painting.
So.
I did get those people to rescore
because
it was funny and lovely, but we did award it to the people who deserved it.
No, I can't stress how much better as an organizer, our lives have become running the event throughout the day.
Yeah.
With those changes to technology. The
Well,
first 2 years were hard work.
Really, I don't need to be there anymore. If it wasn't for the fact that I walk up and down pushing the drinks trolley and, there's actually no need for me to be there.
To be honest, I'm, in a lot of cases, surplus to requirements unless there's rules queries because the
True, I do have to tell people where the toilet is at least 15 times.
That's true. A lot of the time when we're interacting in terms of the software, it's because someone's put the wrong score in the wrong column, and once you hit submit, it requires a TO override, or you're chasing them up over, hey, you haven't scored X or Y, or I need to do your painting scoring from a judge's point of view, so I need to be here with the laptop or the device. And
just another awesome thing about having the scoring system that we use at the moment, it's really interesting because we use the differential scoring for most of our events. What I love is that you can't actually enter the wrong values.
Yeah, it is.
So,
it is more and more idiot proof.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't going to quite put it that way, but I would love it when I would get score sheets back in and go, this is out of 20.
And it's 12 to 13.
Well, how did you work out that he got 18 and you got 17? How do you think that works? So,
yeah, and that was the differential because they'd actually scored 36 and 37 respectively.
Yeah. And they'd still worked out, yeah.
Yeah. No, I do like the fact that idiot proof, you're right, is a bit rude. It's set up in such a way that the players don't have to concern themselves with knowing that stuff. As long as they put their scores in correctly,
it then does it.
How we get to the result is obviously all explained, but they don't need to question, should that be an 18-2 or a 19-1? Because as long as they put the scores in right, then, it works.
Yeah.
As long as you remember to change over when you set the event up right. And that's, we've also had a couple of times where I've forgotten to click a box here or there and or not known that there was a box that I needed to tick to make stuff happen. And, I do think that technology has leapt forward over the last 5 years in terms of what we can do and how we can do it.
It definitely has. But it's interesting to see people now starting to ask for scoring sheets.
Yeah. And I think that's because of the whole progressive scoring type stuff that we've seen through ITC and some of the missions, and who knows what that means for 9th. But your progressive scoring, people do like to have it on hand. So there are people who have written their own scorecards that they bring with them and they keep track of throughout the game, so that at the end of the game, they can just put the numbers in and it's done.
Yeah. And I think last year at Masters, Marcus brought up
he printed, I don't know, like 80 copies of it. And
and
it was 80 times 60, 80 times 6, because there were 6 rounds and 80 players, and everyone got one for every round.
Yeah. And some people lost them. So that was nice. It was not just me. But it was really, really well received having that.
Yeah.
And saw today that somebody's asking for scorecards again, and so interesting seeing that while we don't need them anymore, players are still finding use for them.
And I think that's something.
Care as long as they go in the bin at the end of the event.
I think that's something that once we've seen what the scoring for 9th is going to look like, then we can obviously create something that we can then produce en masse.
Yeah, or we can have available as a download.
Yeah, if you want it. Yeah. The other thing that technology we're about to see change is the way people submit and write armies. Submitting and look, even taking tickets. Our first event was done with cash and over the counter with Games Workshop stores. That was an absolute nightmare.
Yep.
And quickly after that first event, we both agreed we can't be managing that again. Driving to 5 different stores, at the time it was 4 different stores, and trying to keep track of who's paid, who hasn't paid, who's taken, making sure that we were covering our costs.
And
so
trying to drop tickets off because we'd created printed paper tickets that then had to go to
and
different
then
players.
One store would sell out, and then they needed more tickets, and then they'd call another store, and then the other store would give them the number for. We appreciated everything those stores did for that event, but we very quickly realised that just wasn't tenable. So the website got an upgrade. Within 6 months of it being created, we spent money on it because we had to be able to sell tickets online through it. And we started selling tickets via PayPal purchase from the website. And that was a novelty for a lot of players because it had never been done before in Perth.
No.
And
It's
there was
so funny, isn't it? Now everything gets done on paper.
Yeah. Now we go, hey guys, like this is what you know, and I get pings at random times of the day and night as my phone goes, you've received this payment, you've received this payment.
It's funny because we've got a couple of patrons only very small events happening over the next 4 weeks because as restrictions started to ease, we wanted to be able to do something. And yes, we've got those coming up. And it's really nice seeing those pings coming back up again because it means that, for me, I associate those pings with, oh, we're getting to see people again.
More people are coming out to play again,
yeah,
which is great.
that's it.
So the payment thing, I think we led the way on here in Perth in terms of taking tickets.
Do you know where I think one of the differences is as well? So, yes, the payment thing and using PayPal and all that kind of thing, but it was interesting prior to the events, we made a decision that we actually needed to know how many people were coming to this event. So our very first event, you had to purchase a ticket prior to the event.
Yeah.
And there were only so many tickets. And, yeah, we needed to know, I think, a week in advance, 2 weeks in advance, if you were coming or not. And that was massive for players because they didn't want to have to they've never had to pre-purchase tickets before. And they could just turn up on the day or not turn up on the day, depending on how they're feeling. And we were like, well, no, we have to make sure there's enough terrain there. We have to make sure that everything's set up. And if we're doing all of that, we want to make sure that people are actually going to turn up. We need to make sure that we've got enough money to pay for this hall hire.
Yeah, and I mean, we started off at the start with, and we still do have insurances, and we had to pay for a liquor license for that first event, and
all of our events.
Well, yeah, but you know what I mean. Like we knew there were extra costs there that we were trying to provide,
which was one of the other things that was different about our events. We had booze.
Well, we'll get to that one in a minute. But yeah, that technology change for players, we've seen it. Outpost sells a lot of tickets online via like a bank transfer setup. And I know that Mitch, for his AOS events and some of the other events he's run, have been done via PayPal. So we are seeing those changes within the community here, but it's interesting to watch it in real time happen because I still remember some of the I don't have PayPal. How can I pay with PayPal? You don't need PayPal. I've got a credit card. You've got a credit card. Okay, well, you can go onto the PayPal website, click it, put in your credit card details, and pay for it. How do I know it's secure? Well, it's via PayPal. It's a secured website. It's 128-bit encryption and rah. And like you say, these days, it's here's the ticket link, and they just go and click it. And a lot of them have even got it saved, so they just click, click, done.
Yeah.
And with the apps and things these days, it's even faster. The last thing, army lists, which is actually the original point of this. We saw the death throes of the original army builder software that was you downloaded it from, I think it was Lone Wolf was the company that published it. It might still be around today. I don't believe it supports 40k anymore. But we saw the rise of Battlescribe on iOS and Android. And we're about to see that change again in the Warhammer 40,000 app. We did actually see it shift when they changed to Age of Sigmar with the Age of Sigmar app for army building and list building. So it's interesting that we're going to see that change happen again for players on how they build armies and how they submit them. So, gone are the days of trying to collect paper stacks of army lists and then manually sit there with a pen and paper trying to work out if the army list's actually legal. And that's, for probably the first 18 months of events, we were doing it like that. And then people started emailing them in. And then 2017, when we started mucking about with Battlescribe, they were able to upload it in, not Battlescribe, Best Coast Pairings. They were able to upload it into Best Coast Pairings. And not all of them did it.
Nope.
These days, when we set a deadline, and we've got a penalty in the players pack that tells them what the penalty, what they're going to lose for not having the list in on time, we get 98% of lists on time.
Yeah.
And we can publish them, and then, we spot errors and fix them, and we do it at least a week out from the events most of the time.
And the community helps spot those errors. It's not down, when you're running larger events, to have one person go through and looking for...
Well, that first Masters event when we had 66 players, And we tried to give it I think it was 4 weeks notice, so I had enough time to manually go through every single list and check them all, because it is time consuming, particularly if you're not familiar with that army.
Yeah.
And I've gotten better at it over the years, but it's still a big task.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see what the new 40k app brings us, because if the army building software is similar to the Age of Sigmar one, it's going to make it really easy to build armies. It's going to be really easy to submit armies because you can export the files.
Yeah.
And assuming it's all up to date, assuming your app is all up to date, then, we should have a consistent format for every player. That assumes, of course, everyone spends the $1 or $2 or whatever it is a month for the subscription for the app. But we'll see, I guess. So the technology was a big change over those 5 years. Let's go back to your other point a second ago, which was alcohol. The only other event that I'm aware of in Perth up until that point that had served alcohol was the West Gamer Ultimates events.
Yeah, they'll run at
the Saint in Inaloo. And I still remember the first year that we ran it, because I was one of the 3 organisers for the first year. It was actually in the CBD I want to say it was the Ibis Hotel, in one of their rooms. And you could bring alcohol into the room, but you had to go out into the hotel to buy it. Whereas when it moved to the Saint, the first year it was at the Saint, there was actually a bar upstairs that you could purchase from. And then over the years, that bar stopped being used, and you had to go downstairs and purchase and bring it up. But that was the only event that, was actually serving alcohol. And we're very fortunate that your dad has all the required licenses and legal stuff from his work career that he can do that. So he comes along to our events and we pay all the licenses and all the bits and pieces and pay him for his time, and he comes out and serves everyone drinks as and when they want them. Well, that's not true, because some of them would like to start drinking at 8:30 in the morning, but the Department of Racing, Gaming and Liquor won't let us do it before about 10:30.
That's right. And that's another really interesting thing as well around different perceptions of things. So the very first event that we ran, it was in Cannington.
Yeah.
Was it Canning Hall?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Canning Town Hall.
And we'd asked, is the venue air conditioned? So one of the big kind of things that we have for venues is that they do need to be well lit and they need to have air conditioning. And well ventilated is always a positive as well. So is the venue air conditioned? Yep, definitely air conditioned. It wasn't until we were there then we realised that actually the air conditioning was only upstairs.
Well, that's it. It had a mezzanine floor, basically. So there were 12 or 14 boards upstairs.
Yeah, I was going to say 16 tables upstairs. I don't know.
And then it was sort of the 20-ish remainder on the ground floor.
Yeah.
And I think part of the issue was we did have the doors open to try and get some airflow happening. But at the same time, all the vents were 50 feet in the air.
Yeah.
So if you're on the mezzanine, you were 12 feet from an aircon vent as opposed to on the downstairs.
Heat. And it was nasty. I was upstairs at the bar.
Well, the upstairs was where the bar was as well. So everyone's going, can I go upstairs?
Yeah. So with that, and we were aware as well that because we had an upstairs and a downstairs, it takes a long time to walk away from the table to go and quickly grab a drink to get back down again. And there's kind of that time limit with not wanting to be away from the table for too long. But it was stinking hot.
Yeah.
So we ended up taking, I think we had like a bread tray at the time, which weighed a ton, but we had a bread tray that we'd sort of walked around to the tables and said, does anyone want to buy a drink? And we walked it around. And my dad at the time was going, we can't do that, Emma. Like it feels too salesy and too pushy. I'm going, but we're not doing it to try and, it's not that we're trying to be salesy. We're doing it as a public service.
Yeah, because the guys can continue playing at that point without wasting, without using 5 to 7 minutes
to go
walk to the stairs, walk all the way up the stairs, wait in line potentially if there is a line, buy a drink, and then walk all the way back.
There's quite often a line at the bar.
There can be, yes.
Yeah. So, and now that's kind of expected at our events that, you'll be coming around with the drinks in the snack trolley, won't you, Emma? Yes, I will. As soon as that bar opens, bar normally opens either at 10 or 11.
Well, there's a proper trolley for it now as well.
There is, yeah, because that bread tray was really heavy, especially when you've got to squat down to the floor, put it down.
To swap money and
and then squat down, pick it up again.
We actually
Thighs
do.
take a month to recover.
Well, we take credit card now as well
We
over the
do.
bar, which is another little change that's
Apart
happened
from
in the.
City of Armidale Hall, where you've got to have the square reader in exactly the right place on the bar. But yeah,
Yeah, we're
that's
still
another
working on
story.
that fix.
There's nothing we can do about it. I know exactly where it needs to be now. It's just if somebody touches it,
You don't
I
touch
wanna
it, leave
break
it.
their finger.
But yeah, I think the social aspect of the events that we host can't be understated, and that's, I mean, the Australian culture it does include alcohol to some degree, and we never condone the excessive consumption of, and we do everything there where we manage people if they are consuming too much, and it's all done responsibly and correctly. But at the same time, that was really well received by the community to be able to share a drink over a game or commiserate a loss or celebrate a win.
Yeah.
It's definitely something that if we didn't have the bar, it would...
It'll just be a different room.
Yeah. So that's definitely a change that we've seen. Should we talk a bit bigger scope now? Because I'm trying to think with the events, obviously, like the events evolve through us spending more money and time on terrain and boards and stuff. But a lot of that's impacted on by the evolution of stuff outside of our control.
Yeah.
So we started in 7th edition 40k.
We did have to go back this
We did
morning
have to
when we
figure
were
it
talking about
out.
this event. We did start in 7th, wasn't it? It wasn't still 6th edition when we got started, but no, it was definitely 7th.
It was just before the new Tau book, because that dropped like 2 weeks before the event, and it dropped the same day that lists were due from memory.
Yes.
Or
the day after lists
it was
were
the day
due.
after lists were
Yeah,
due.
because
It
we had
was
them due in on the Friday, and they
then
dropped
the
on
book
the
dropped on the
Saturday.
Saturday. Yeah.
Massive.
And they've done that to us a couple of times, which is why my list submissions are now like a Wednesday and
Yeah.
random. It feels random for some people. Why is it a Wednesday? No, it's deliberate.
Speaking of which, I did see a little post saying, "Don't forget, lists are due."
Yep.
So just a
For
reminder,
our patrons. Yep.
if you're playing on Saturday, your lists are due.
So the fact that this is going to be published just shy of midnight tonight,
They'll have 2 or 3 minutes to get it in.
and this is probably an hour into the episode, there's probably going to be an issue there.
Sucks to be you.
So yeah, we've definitely seen a lot of changes from the company that produces the game. So
Yeah. So I think the first, obviously, as you alluded to, the first big thing was, one of the biggest things that we went through was 8th edition. But it was
Well,
prior to that we saw the
a lot of
company changes.
Well, certainly, I mean, 8th edition was kind of announced, I want to say it was somewhere just after LVO in 2017, and it was released May or June of 2017.
It was June. We ran the event, I think, the 8th of June, and that was
So it
the
was May.
first.
So they released it in May then.
Well, no, I actually think that we ran the event something like a week after it released.
I remember, don't get me wrong, I remember it being rapidly afterwards, but I could have sworn that 8th dropped in May, not
Okay,
June.
maybe it did.
When we started running events, it was sort of, it was the Tau Codex drop, and we hadn't seen some of the silliness of the formations, and 7th edition was still relatively new, because they were obviously still cycling through codexes and that sort of stuff in the update process. And that was a time when allies were a thing. Our first winner was running Craftworld, and they were Dark Eldar at the time, not Drakari. And we were starting to see the international stuff sort of become more prevalent, keeping track of what's winning stuff in other parts of the world.
And heaven forbid saying it out loud, the meta.
Yep. The ITC was in its infancy at that point, because I think they've been going about 7 years now. So they were kind of in a fledgling place as well in terms of establishing themselves in the Americas. And, you wouldn't have ever considered a streamed game at that point. I did record a lot of our games from the very first Masters. They're still on the YouTube channel if you want to go back and watch them with some commentary and whatnot. So there's the wider gaming community at that time, from a Games Workshop standpoint, the company certainly wasn't featured very favourably in most people's minds. They'd closed off all their social media prior to then. They had no connections on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on any of the current social media at the time. And there was a fairly negative perception from a bunch of the gaming community around it wasn't any more about the gamers anymore. It was about making money. Now, there's nothing wrong with a business making money, but when your customers are disgruntled, that's a recipe for bad things to happen. So I think that at the time, it didn't... everyone liked the game. They didn't necessarily like the company, if that kind of makes sense.
It was a very different company, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. The change when Kevin, I think it was Kevin Roundtree, I think is his name. He's the current CEO. He actually took over in 2015, and it took him a little bit of time to
change the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To build back up the trust of the community. And
well, I think that the customers were almost treated like, let's say second-class citizens, but, you don't need to know anything. We'll tell you when we're ready to tell you. And, it's a need-to-know basis, and you're the customer, you don't need to know.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that doesn't feel that way now. Now it feels like obviously they've introduced the Warhammer community, and it does feel more like friends having a joke and hamming things up and really leaning into it. Yeah.
So his appointment was actually announced back in 2014, having just had a quick look on the website, in November of 2014. And he took his place as the CEO effective 1st of January 2015. So we'd had about 6 months of him when we started our events.
Mm-hmm. Well, no,
started
about
planning.
a year.
We started planning for our events.
Yeah.
And I feel like it did take him a while to change the culture, because we also had Age of Sigmar released. I'm trying to think when the Age of Sigmar release was.
I was wondering.
I want to say it was 2015 as well.
No, it
was
wasn't.
It 20?
I would say it was 2016.
See, the Wikipedia page says 2015.
Oh.
So we might have... Obviously, that release was done while Tom Kirby was the CEO. Like, it was developed while he was in charge. The fact that it was released early in 20...
Really? Are you sure?
That's what I'm looking at.
That doesn't feel right.
No, it doesn't for me either, but it's it says released... I'm looking at the Age of Sigmar lexicanum.com, and it says since its release in the summer of 2015, which means around the time we started writing stuff. So, but I think the part of it was to do with when Roundtree took over, he started doing stuff and listening to the community again. And that was probably the biggest change we've seen from Games Workshop as a company, in that they will listen to the community.
Yeah.
They've re-engaged on social media. They've got an active Facebook page, an active YouTube channel, all the painting guides they've been publishing. They're willing to go tongue-in-cheek a little bit. I still remember the release of Magnus the Red.
Yep.
And there was a really grainy, horrible photo of the box for that model. And it was like, oh my God. And I went to bed that night. It was late in the evening I saw it. 12 hours later when I woke up, there was a video of the studio.
Yeah.
And they were joking and they went, oh, what's this in the recycling bin?
Yeah.
And they pulled the model out and a nice close-up high-def video. Oh, this is the new... Oh, what's in here? Plastic Sisters of Battle Sprue. And they lent into it and went, yep, someone's sharing our stuff. Let's stop sharing grainy, dodgy photos and let's build a hype around it that we control. And we've seen the Rumoured Mill pick back up from them, where they're showing crops of miniatures and stuff and engaging with the community. What could this be? What could that be? Yeah. So that it's very rare these days that a lot of the sites that, when you go back pre-2015, a lot of the sites that used to live off of the revenue from the advertising on their sites, when they'd publish a leaked picture or a leaked... I still remember the 4th edition Chaos Codex being completely leaked, complete with bleed and trim marks from the printer.
Oh, yeah, actually, I do remember that.
That stuff basically doesn't happen anymore. Nowadays, those rumour mills are leaking shipping manifestos that hint at what the book might be. Yeah. So we've definitely seen Games Workshop grow and evolve to embrace some of the 21st century technology in regards to how it deals with its customers. And it doesn't always get it right. But
no. Which does bring me to the Australia tax.
Yeah. I will say with the Australia tax, we haven't had a price rise in 5 years.
And I would not have thought that it was 5 years.
It is.
I thought you said it was 3 the other night.
No,
when
it's
we were talking
5.
about
Actually, so an across-the-board price rise hasn't happened in 5 years.
Okay. But I don't know. I think because that whole Australia tax thing was so big and so offensive, that still feels yuck.
Also, the fact that they didn't do it for Forge World at the same time meant everyone went, what the feck is wrong with you? Because there was a weird scenario where there were hybrid kits you could buy that were part resin, part plastic, and it was cheaper to buy them from Forge World, and you got the full plastic kit than it was to go to your local Games Workshop store and buy it over the counter, including shipping.
Yeah.
That's not the case anymore, which upset the apple cart again, because it was like, hang on a minute.
No, you're taking this away from me as well.
But we get to pay it in a local currency. Who cares? Like, what are you doing?
Woohoo!
Yeah.
But we've got to pay in euros for a hoodie.
Yeah, apparently. Although if they convert that to $70, then they're not looking at the market, because the gaming community is a weird one where the models they begrudgingly pay for in some cases, or they don't care about the price is the other side of that coin.
Yeah, that's it. We often get things, so messages come through that goes, oops, this happened, $2,000 later.
Yeah. Like, I still remember being in Albany for Linebreaker. It might have even been the first year we did it, where, maybe it was the second, where one of the guys got completely off his face drinking after the event was done, and then ordered, like, he woke up the next morning to find an email confirmation from Forge World for like $1,500 worth of knights and bits and pieces because he thought it was cool the night before.
I think he ordered a Titan. I mean, we did leave him ordering something. It was irresponsible of us. You should never drink in Forge World.
I've definitely done that. I remember doing that with 4th edition with my Grey Knight Land Raider, where I spent enough money on it that the accessories I bought from Forge would cost the same as the tank. So, and that was a metal hybrid tank at the time.
He's lovely. I miss him coming to our events.
Yeah. So no, you're right. The pricing structure has always been a bugbear. It's never gone over well putting prices up, and I think I've come to the conclusion as to why that is. Most companies don't tell you. They don't publish it. They don't give you a warning about it. They just do it. And you start thinking about it. Like I was saying to the kids when we were at the shops the weekend or just before, and I grabbed a loaf of bread, and it was $1.40 instead of $1. And I remember the company making
because I'm a hippie and don't like food, don't like things with
so you buy the no preservative,
preservatives,
So, but I remember when they made a huge big deal about milk being $2 for 2 litres and bread was $1 a loaf.
Yeah.
And when they've put that price up over the last couple of years, and it's probably over the last 3 to 5 years, they haven't told anyone because milk's not $2 for 2 litres anymore. It's $2.50 for 2 litres. So I feel like there's and
just for the younger listeners, when he's talking about bread being $1 for a loaf and milk being $2 for a loaf, he's talking about 5 years ago, not 20 years ago.
No.
Because 20 years ago when we were
they were a lot cheaper than that.
Actually, I don't think they were. I reckon they were more expensive.
Cheese was $2 for $1.99 on special for a kilo of cheese. Now it's $8 a kilo. Anyway, that was 20 years ago. I know that because I was in advertising doing that stuff 20 years ago.
Anyway, we may have gone off topic a little bit.
But it's one that I think Games Workshop think they're doing the right thing by telling us that price rises are coming. And the problem is the community takes that and goes, oh, you're putting our prices up again, you know.
Yeah.
Most companies don't tell you the price goes up. They just put it up.
Yeah.
And so...
But that is what they do. Like, when you said we haven't had an across-the-board price increase, things have still gone up over the last 5 years.
Only when they've been replaced. So we've had kits replaced and the pricing structure on that kit changes because it's a new kit. But they haven't just gone, cool, everything's going up 5%. And they still haven't now. The last price increase it was 400 products across a range of literally thousands. And of the 40k items on that list, is about 130 items out of 40k that have gone up. I was looking at it, going through it. There's about 50 items on that 400 that are dice cubes.
Oh.
So it's not like it's been a across-the-board price rise, but it doesn't matter because Games Workshop are putting their prices up, and there's outrage and decry, and I get it and I don't. I get it because I hate the fact that I have to pay more, but if something goes up $2 and that's the deal breaker, then...
Well, yes and no. It depends. If it keeps going up $2 and $2 and $2 and $2
every
and
year,
$2,
yeah,
then all of a sudden it's... Yeah.
A $30 thing is a $40 thing 5 years later. But the prices, at least here in Australia, haven't done that over the last 5 years. Yes, some things have gone up. Like if you look at the Start Collecting boxes that started, I think they were like 140 or ish, 130, 140, 145. The current ones today are 165. But a lot of the older ones that they produced are still the older prices.
I don't know if they're as good a deal anymore.
Oh, no, they are.
Okay.
They're still really good. If you're going to start it... Some of them don't have the right collections of models in them for a competitive player. Like the old Eldar one, which was 3 jet bikes.
And I kind of think that a Start Collecting box is not necessarily for a competitive player.
No, it's not. Exactly. But I bought 3 of the old Eldar Start Collectings because you got 3 jet bikes, a character, and a fire prism. And collectively you saved like $50 and everything in there was good.
And then tells me that he's going to sell the bits that he's not going to use and find out that actually they never made it out of the dungeon.
Look, those fire prisms became night spinners and they're out there. So, they do...
I'm going to get this, and with this and this is this
Look,
much.
I do sell...
And then if I sell that bit, it's almost like... Just out of interest, who do you think you're fooling?
Well, it's over the 5 years, it's been able to fool you less and less and less. I'll give you the tip for those of you who keep saying, like, how do I get my partner into this? It's a double-edged sword.
Really considerate.
It's a double-edged sword there, because as soon as they know what you're bringing in the house, it's harder to go, no, I've had this for yonks.
Really? Because we just talked about that being a new release 2 episodes ago. Do you want to rethink whether you're going to tell me that you've had this in the dungeon since, 1997?
Well, it's that skeptical for you, though, that occasionally I bring a kit in from the dungeon and you look at me and go, why is that in plastic? I'm going, no. I honestly didn't buy this now. Like, this has actually been out there.
You can ask Richard. Yeah, because he's not going to lie for you, is he?
I've got 2 Hemlock Wraith Fighters in plastic out in the dungeon that I found a couple of days ago. I went, oh...
He found them when he was in Games Workshop.
No!
A couple of days ago.
You know what? I actually found the receipt with them. So...
This is the thing. Don't tell me I need these models and then...
Oh, no. Clearly I didn't need those models, but I wanted them. There's a distinct difference there.
I'm not sure gamers understand the difference between need and want.
Look, buying is a completely separate hobby to building, which is a completely separate hobby to painting, which is a completely separate hobby to gaming.
I am well aware.
So, that instant gratification of, I always wanted one of those.
That so sucks. How do you get instant gratification? I just get buyer's remorse.
Depends on what I'm buying. I get that for the car for like 10 years on. I still have that every now and again.
Me too.
But no, not for hobby. That clearly tells me I'm over the car now. So.
Oh, good. I was thinking it's time for that to go. Anybody want to buy an Evo?
So, yeah, look, the pricing stuff has always been a problem. But I do feel like they make that problem for themselves. Because most of the other luxury brands in the world, and obviously you can't compare Games Workshop to another luxury model maker because there aren't really any in the same format. There are other companies, but nothing on the scale of Games Workshop is what I mean.
Well, it's not even the same scale. There's other companies I don't think have the same overheads. And we did speak about that either in the last episode or the last live. I can't remember because everything's blended into one, or maybe it was the
who knows?
Patrons podcast. But, games, one of the things that I speak about liking about Games Workshop over some of the other gaming companies is that they do actually have... they've got the stores where people can go in and they can be introduced to the gaming, and they can be, they have them walk through the games, and they have the painting sessions, and they actually have that supported entry into gaming. Whereas there's no other gaming company that offers that.
No, there isn't. And that's the thing. Like, I was talking to some of the guys who play War Machine here in Perth, and it's really hard to get a new player into War Machine because where do you go? You can go to one store in Perth that stocks it, and when you go in there, you can't get advice, you can't get
That's it.
the support around it to go, oh, you know, this faction plays like this, and this does this,
And you don't accidentally start playing War Machine. Like, nobody accidentally well, maybe you do. I was going to say nobody accidentally falls down the stairs into tactics, but you really want to hope not.
you're going there with intent.
You're going, exactly. Whereas I have seen friends' kids, like, because I've had friends who have messaged me and gone, oh my God, and they've sent me photos. You will never guess where I am.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, say hi to whichever staff member I see in the background of the photo. And then they'll send me another text message. So, just walked out with $200 start collecting box, and apparently my kid now plays Warhammer.
One of our close friends, I bumped into her in the shops a few days ago, and one of the first things out of her mouth was, he's been painting Warhammer while we've been on lockdown. And one of the guys who's probably listening to this now got in touch with me recently, who used to be one of the mechanics and used to work at the garage that services the Evo.
Oh, does he want to buy an Evo?
No, he's already got a 9. He and I were talking cars when he sent me this message. He sent me this photo going, yes, so I went out to Morley and I'm $300 lighter, and look what I'm doing now.
And my response was, well, if he's married, tell his wife that he did exceptionally well to be that.
Well, he bought her something because she showed interest as well.
Yeah, trying to jump on that nice and early.
Yeah.
Keep her involved, then maybe I'll be allowed to keep playing with my toys.
But, yeah, it's... I don't think there's... how they handled the latest price rise, given everything going on in the world at the moment, wasn't right, in our opinion. I think we both agreed on that.
I was really quite vocal about that.
Yep.
It's not often we agree, is it?
I think we agree a lot more than you think. I just think that the disagreements are more
fun.
yeah, more vivid. But I think that a lot of the time now, the disparity between us and the rest of the world has kind of vanished, but it's not because they've stabilised the way they sell in Australia. It's because they put everywhere else in the world up. So, I mean, there was a time when, it was just way cheaper to buy 95% of the kits elsewhere in the world. That disparity's slowly crept down. It's still there. Yeah,
you spoke about, getting some of the merchandise possibly sent to relatives to send here. And postage from the UK to Australia is so expensive. Like, it is ridiculously expensive. But
if they offer free shipping, and if they offer free shipping in Europe, for a certain purchase, it'll be cheaper for them to ship it from the UK than it will be for this company.
Yes, my point was though, we worked out it was however much cheaper for you to get stuff posted to that, like for them to go in and get stuff and post it to you. It still worked out cheaper than going into a local store. Now, we believe in supporting local people, and so we still went in and bought things from local stores to make sure that the stores stay open and those awesome people who work there keep their jobs. But the reality was it was cheaper to do that. When you bought the Titan, it was actually cheaper to fly to the UK, buy the Titan and fly back again than it was to buy it through
the online store. Yeah, and that's an extreme example because...
Well, the Titan's not cheap, obviously, but it's ridiculous that it's cheaper to fly to the UK to pick it up and fly back again than it is to get it mailed to you.
Because of the way the taxation works and the claiming the VAT back and the price disparity. Yeah. Where you're already saving like $1,100 in discrepancy straight away with the conversion rates.
And it cost us $1,098 for the airfare to get to the UK.
By the time you actually worked it out, I think there's about 3 of those kits that if you want one and you're going to buy it from the AU web store, if you've got a week to spare, get on the plane and go and buy it.
Well, at the moment, obviously not. But,
no. But the Forge World isn't open anyway, so it doesn't matter. You can't buy it on the online store either.
And there is obviously... I've never met anyone who's just popped to Nottingham for, half an hour or more and then popped back in, to Heathrow and flown back home.
No, you'd stay overnight.
At least. So, you are looking at the cost for accommodation and all that as well. So it's not actually cheaper to fly.
It probably still is, as long as you're going with intent.
Yeah.
Like if you're flying into London, getting on the train, going straight to Nottingham, checking into your hotel, staying overnight, going to Warhammer World the first thing the next day, and then getting back on the train from Nottingham back to London, get back on the plane that next day, still be cheaper than buying it on the web store.
I'm not sure that a gamer has the ability to fly to the UK, go to Nottingham, and not spend a day in Warhammer World.
So you pay for 2 nights accommodation, you're probably still in front. I did the maths on it.
I know. That's how you convinced me that Trust me, I remember.
So,
Still no painting.
well,
What's your excuse now? Because you got a new airbrush.
well, now the weather's clearing up, I might be able to finish spray painting it.
Oh, right. So now it's the weather.
You cannot spray. I'm not spraying that Titan in this weather. While it's raining and horrible, that's a recipe for me ruining it. It's not happening in this weather. So,
Are you afraid of painting?
yes,
that
I
model?
am.
What can we do to walk you through that?
No,
fear?
we're off topic. We'll do that in the outro. Let's stay on topic.
Nobody who listens to us expects us to stay on topic. If
So-
I'm not teasing you about something, someone's going to be upset.
Well, that's true. They'll think I've been murdered and stuffed in a bag somewhere. What else have we seen? So we saw Age of Sigmar,
Yeah, we did.
and that was a significant negative feedback from the community.
I was trying to work out whether or not to talk about that.
Well, we talked about price rises, so
I know, but I feel like that's less controversial
but I
than
think
the
Age of
response to Age of Sigmar.
well, I think Age of Sigmar, because of the outgoing management, wasn't handled well in its release because they didn't release points values, they didn't release a whole bunch of stuff that felt like it was intricately needed for the game. It felt like an incomplete product.
For me, I don't think that was the issue. I felt...
As everything I saw, that was a big issue.
Yeah, see, I actually...
It didn't feel like you could play the game, and they had all these stupid... They tried to say, no, you can use all your old models, but then the old models had these ridiculous rules like, have a rock, paper, scissors competition with your opponent. If you win, you get +1 to hit. And there was all this...
Again, similar to what I was talking about before, where it's actually patronising.
It wasn't good for them. And as soon
But
as
I
they
wonder
released
if
the
that
first
was-
General's Handbook with all the points values and some of the match play rules...
When did the General's Handbook come out? Maybe
Af-
that's what I'm thinking
Yeah,
about.
that was the first major release that was
Yeah.
after Kevin Roundtree took over. And everyone went, holy shit, that's awesome. Like,
Yeah,
all
I
of a
think-
sudden the game feels like we can play it.
For me, it still felt like there was some reservations
Oh, there was still some resentment for sure.
And I think a lot of that came with how much connection people felt to the
old world.
Warhammer Fantasy.
Yeah.
I was going to call it Ninth Age then. And I'm like,
No.
that's not it. How much... And the feeling as though they'd had their baby
Yeah.
taken away and burnt in front of them. And then...
Some people burn their armies.
Well, yeah,
Literally
that
burn
was
their
actually
armies.
kind of what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
And then you're giving me this instead, and feeling like they've ripped off.
Yeah.
You've taken away something I love, and then you're telling me that you're just going to replace, like, something that I love this much and that's been part of my life for however long, and you're just going to replace it.
Yeah.
What gives you the right to do that? Well, obviously they're the game manufacturer, so that's what gives them the right. But again, that's kind of what I was talking about with the way that the previous management worked, in that the customer and the players...
There was a disconnect between them and the company.
Well, just that it was a needs-to-know basis, and the customers and the players didn't need to know.
No,
so
we're
I've
doing
made a
this. Here we
decision
go.
on... It's patriarchal kind of powered games. We've made a decision on your behalf, and you can like it or lump it.
Yeah.
And it was the same, I think, when Age of Sigmar was released. There was no, for me, and I know I was outside of the community, obviously, when Age of Sigmar was released, and just starting to come into the community when the General Handbook was released. But it still felt that same kind of... There was no hype or excitement. It was going to happen when it happened,
Yeah.
and we'll tell you when it's happening, and you'll be grateful, or go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And there's other gaming systems out there if you want to play them.
Yeah.
And yeah.
They've turned that around since then. The community engagement's gotten better. The game system's gotten better.
Yeah.
It's better supported now because obviously they've had 5 years to create new models and rules and expand it. And
the models are beautiful.
some of them are fantastic. I really, I still want to, even if I wasn't going to play Daughters of Cain, I'd still buy Marathi because that model's stunning. I haven't bought it yet, so don't look at me like that.
I'm not looking at it like anything. I've just
I was
got
waiting.
my eyes open.
I was waiting for the look, that's all. So I think that, yeah, the changes that have happened since Kevin Roundtree took over in regards to Age of Sigmar have all been positive because for whatever reason he's noticed that the community wants that interactivity and that engagement, and even when they don't necessarily agree with the choices made, being active and responsive to the community is better than sticking your head in the sand and pretending they don't exist, but we want you to buy it anyway.
Yeah.
So
It's very good business.
they they're making good money, which means we get more and more
I think
releases.
they're making good choices.
They are, for the most part. They do stumble every now and again, but they're a completely different company from 5 years ago. Completely different.
Where'd the other guy go?
No idea.
Fair enough.
I know, or I say I know, I think from memory, Kevin Roundtree was the CFO, and then he became the CEO when...
But he's a player, isn't he?
Well, there was a lot of rumour that he was, but he's not a diehard hobbyist. Like, he's not a Warhammer super nerd, oh my god, Warhammer. But he's engaged enough in the business to... Like, it's not just a job for him either, if that makes sense. So he cares enough about the product that... as much as he cares about it for as a job. And I think that's a good balance. Because a Warhammer super nerd inevitably would be a bad choice as well, as much as a really corporate entity would be. Because as soon as you've got someone there who thinks that they know best for the game, there's inevitably going to be parts of the community that don't agree.
And there are anyway.
There are,
There's
yeah.
always going to be parts of the community that don't agree.
But I think it'd be a lot more polarizing if you've got a CEO like shouting at people going, no, this is the way this is meant to be. Because that's the way gamers get.
Is it?
Yeah.
I hadn't noticed.
Yeah.
The ones I've met have all been level-headed.
Yeah,
and really
calm
open
and
really
rational.
open to hearing both sides of the story and, you know, making an educated
Look, when it comes
decision
to...
after they've seen the release.
No, when it comes to our man dollies, it's dead serious. So then we saw... I still remember the LVO 2017 very vividly because they announced... Well, I did abandon you and went to America for the week, which was great. The announcement for 8th Ed coming was around that time. It was also around the time that we learned of the sickness and then, sadly, the passing of Alan Bligh from the Forge World team.
Which I believe we've just had the anniversary of.
Yeah, it will be. It'll be 3 years.
I believe so.
Because that was there was a conversation around the at LVO about what was going to happen to Horus Heresy and whether that was going to move to 8th. And at the time, the announcement was yes, it was going to move to 8th. Yeah. And then obviously with Alan's passing, the leadership of that changed so that they wanted to stabilise it and keep it as it was rather than... Because all the interviews showed that he kept a lot of it to himself and how it was going to work.
Well, I think as well, you know, my understanding is that was quite sudden.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, how do you then pick that up and...
And the Forge World did feel...
his legacy.
It did feel a lot of very rudderless at Forge World for a long time there because I don't think they had anyone who kind of knew what Forge World were aiming to achieve and how they were writing the Heresy to match the novels. And, you know, when you've got someone who's been with the company a long time and whose shoes to fill... You don't want to fill it with someone quickly and, you know, jump into his proverbial.
However, it's now been a couple of years and we're still...
Yeah, and look, you know, who knows what it would have been like had he recovered from his illness and, you know, we could be having a 9th edition Heresy very shortly. Who knows? But we did have 8th edition 40k drop. The LVO 2017 was one of the last tournaments I played in 7th edition. Mm-hmm. The days of the free Battle Company vehicles for Space Marines and the Necron Decurion and the Adeptus Mechanicus War Conclave. Lots of free units. That was a great marketing strategy in 7th. How to make people buy more stuff. Here's, for every unit, you get a free vehicle, points-wise. Oh, okay, cool. So I can have 10 free drop pods. Yes, you can. How many points is that? 0. How many dollars is that? $55 a drop pod. There were plenty of battle companies built in that period. War Conclave was the same. Lots of free points, which meant more models, which meant more stuff. So when 8th rolled around, there was a bit of skepticism because it was a hard reset.
Yeah.
And none of the books from 7th would work. And they were changing the way AP worked, and they were changing cover, and they were changing a whole bunch of other stuff. And I'm sure if I can find it, I'll put a link in the show notes to the episode that we did around that release, because it'd be interesting to see what our thoughts were like back in 2017 or 2018 when we recorded it. but the 8th edition release has done more for the community and obviously the company than any other edition I've ever seen. It's brought so many players back to the game.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
While also expanding into new players.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of my experience of it, that we've seen a new generation of players coming in. And that's not, maybe, I don't want to use this term, but a generation of players isn't the right thing. I want to say a new wave of players, but I'm really reluctant to refer to anything as a wave at the moment.
Yeah.
But they're a new
plague of players.
group. Yeah, so I think we've seen these players who have not been exposed to Warhammer or to 40k before are now starting to join in. But yeah, players who haven't played since 3rd edition.
The amount of players that have come back into the community that played 2nd in particular, played a bit of 3rd and then kind of fell out of it in sort of the late 90s or early 2000s, and then have come back to it now going, some of it feels familiar, some of it doesn't, but I want to play again.
Yeah.
And, you know, nearly, well, at the time, 15 plus years had passed. And those players, 3 years on, are still playing the game for the most part. So whether their life changed over that, you know, or whether it was just a case of I fell out of love with what they did in 3rd edition and now this feels a bit more like it did.
Yeah.
And there are definitely parts of 8th that feel like 2nd for me. It feels like the game in 8th at least is an evolution of the best parts of a lot of the prior editions. There's a few bits they've tripped up on, but for the most part, it feels like they took the best bits across the prior 7.
Yeah, and I think I said in, I don't know, whichever previous episode of whichever podcast it was we were recording, that it makes sense that they would do that. Like, of course you would take the best bits and smush them all together. But thinking about it after we recorded that, it also doesn't make sense. Because you don't know what you don't know. So I think for the other editions, they needed to make changes to say, well, obviously when you do Rogue Trader, that is the best edition that we've ever had. So the best bits of the best bits is this. So you actually have to be able to go through and go, well, it's changed to be able to see how we can improve.
And what the community want out of it. Because Rogue Trader was almost a skirmish level role-playing game.
It was complex.
Oh, yeah. It's a 400-page rule book.
We had to build the models.
Not as in physically, she means on the paper as well. You had to buy a human and then buy it all the Space Marine upgrades and then buy it carapace armor and then buy powered bits of it and buy...
Oh, he needs to breathe.
Yeah, buy a rebreather for him and... Yeah. I still remember many players used to not bother putting the rebreathers and photo visors in Space Marine helmets because it saved points. It was like a half a point for both of those each.
Awesome. He's now dead and you haven't rolled a dice. And this goes to show that I'm a narrative player.
Only if you've got a virus grenade. Or you manage to roll up fighting in outer space, then you're stuffed.
Well, that's what I mean. You're fighting in outer space.
You did roll that in Rogue Trader. And that's what I mean. Like, Rogue Trader even wanted you to have a DM, like a game master, sort of role to help manage the game. And the Battle for the Farm, the very first mission, was 10 Space Marines versus like 20 orcs. Like, it was a skirmish engagement. And the community at the time, and we're talking late 80s at this point, there was no way of telling the company what they wanted other than what they were seeing in London. And there were people who wanted to play with more than 10 models. They wanted to play a war game. Yeah. And so 2nd edition gave us the ability to do that. They gave us an army structure, and the first codexes were released. For those fanboys out there, the very first codex ever released in the term codex at least was Space Wolves. And then a
fangirl could be interested in Space Wolves too.
Yep. Still called a fanboy because that's the colloquialism.
We could just say a fan.
Yeah, it's not a title. It's a fan and a fanboy are two very different things. A week later, the second book was the Eldar. And I remember that because in Perth we got them simultaneously because
that's what Postage does.
Postage does that. And my first...
Quite probably that's because they had to send it by second class sea and air.
Probably.
And they were making sure they packed that container as best they could to get the...
Maximised it, yeah.
Anyway, we've possibly gone a little bit further than we were intending.
Look, if anyone's listening to this, they know, like you said earlier, we do get sidetracked.
Yeah. I'm trying to say, where were you going with this?
Okay, so my point was that as the game has evolved over the years and as they've taken feedback in place...
Remember where we started, okay.
I was just inserting a piece of my brain's
there now.
history
Yep.
as to when those came out. When the reset from second to third happened, I didn't see that. I was on a 6-month break at the time. So I came back to a game that was completely different to me that I'd
Are
never...
you blaming me for that 6-month break?
No, because it happened before we
Okay,
dating.
right, cool. So it's
So-
other girls who you're blaming for that.
Yeah, I will blame it on another girl. But there was still... Like I came...
I was a good girlfriend and didn't make you give up gaming.
No, that's true.
We should do a whole podcast on that.
We probably could.
Not about me being a good girlfriend, but about actually, seeing how important it is that people do have their individual hobbies.
Make a note then.
Probably not.
So I came back to a completely different game, and we played it with some friends, and then we kind of started playing more regularly than we ever had because the game was faster and easier to play, and it didn't feel like you were having to look up 50 different rulebooks. The codexes were really cheap back then because the books were super streamlined. There was less fluff in them. They were very much a stripped down version of what we'd had of these thicker books in second. And then as sort of the internet's developed, they've been able to take in more feedback, and it was like, oh no, we actually like some of the artwork and the fluff and some of the stuff back in the books, please. The third ones were really, really stripped down. Maybe put some of that back in for fourth. Oh, and then wouldn't it be cool if we had planes? We've kind of got some weird rules for planes from third and fourth edition, but they don't really work. We'll give you plane models in fifth, but they won't work like planes. We really want them to work like planes. Okay, in sixth edition, now they work like actual planes. And you can see the evolutionary process as they take on board all the information they get given. And as the years go on, they get more and more of that information. And so with the next iteration, we're going to see a situation where everything they've said so far, they've clearly been listening because they're addressing all of the key niggles that people have been saying for the last 3 years. And I don't think that necessarily would have happened 5 years ago because it didn't feel as connected because they weren't listening on social media and they weren't willing to engage the community. And the jump from sort of 6th to 7th, which was only a 2-year edition. 6th was really short.
Yeah.
Because they weren't like... It wasn't something the community got behind. We didn't feel like we could embrace it because there was no engagement. So, yes, the 8th edition was only 3 years, so was 7th for that matter. And when you go back through it, I always thought they were 5 years. They're actually probably more close to 4 than 5 a lot of the time. But when you think over 30 years, we're into 9th edition.
I think everything moves a lot faster now.
No, that's true.
So, it makes sense that editions are changing and being updated. And I think we did see, you spoke earlier about this being edition 8.5. Well, I feel like we had that with a couple of the...
7th
no.
was 6.5, but really 6 just shouldn't have happened and it should have just been 7th.
No, I'm more talking about with 8th edition when we had some of the, the beta rules that came out and that kind of stuff. It did feel like we had an 8.1 and an 8.2, that kind of thing.
That's true.
Happening. So I almost feel like while this is officially being called 9th, we have seen bigger updates
We've seen the patches happen over the life of the game.
But I think that happens now because, and, I was saying before about when those first 2 books came out at the same time because it was sent second class sea and air from the UK and postage is really expensive. So pack that shipping container as full as you possibly can to maximize how much you're spending in postage. And you've spoken on episodes before about how you would have to write off and send a check for a model and wait for it to be delivered. We are now at a point where if when people send us questions to ask about events, if you haven't, well, if one of us, so, colloquial you, if we haven't responded within sort of 5 minutes, we're getting another message back, did you see my message? Or we'll get an email to say, did you, seriously, dude, it's 3 a.m. I'm sleeping. Did I see your message? No.
Yeah.
But people expect
I'm awake and I can, I'm awake. I want to talk to you. And why aren't you talking back?
But everything is faster.
Yeah.
We've just experienced difficulty with postage with your
with the airbrush.
But it still only took how long to get here?
4 weeks.
Whereas when we used to send parcels to the UK,
it'd take months.
We'd be having to send them mid-September to make sure that they got home in time for Christmas.
Yeah.
Because it was so expensive that we did send things second class sea and air. So
they offered me the sea option when I was sending stuff to the UK recently for another hobbyist in the UK.
Yeah.
And I said to
Probably
him,
should have sent it that way. Might have
well,
been.
he got it. I shipped that after I ordered the airbrush, and he got it before I got the airbrush, and it went to the UK.
It's funny because that actually just something popped up on a Facebook memory today that we'd ordered something from Sydney and something from America. We got the thing from America in 6 days, and the thing from Sydney was 2 weeks, and we were still waiting.
Yeah.
So,
But that's
anyway. I've gone off on a tangent. My thing is that we're now working with everything happens so much quicker. Everything's so much faster. Electronic things are updated instantly. You're not having to wait and get things sent to printers.
And if you've got your stuff set up right, you can go to bed one night, get up the next morning, it's all updated while you sleep, and hey, look, this has changed.
And that's what's going to happen with this podcast. You're going to edit it, and then it's going to crunch and do whatever it does, and then it will push itself out when it's ready.
Yeah.
So I think because of that, that's why I would expect that we will see either shorter durations for editions, or we will see that 9.5.
Well, they touted 8th as a living edition, and I think that they've half achieved it because they're still resetting it now. But I also think, from a business point of view, it makes sense to reset it with a new book. They make money.
Yeah.
It also makes sense from the sounds of it, particularly with the Crusade stuff and a lot of the new changes they're adding. At that point, there's no point in selling the old rulebook anymore. So it's going to be interesting to see how different this game actually is.
Yeah.
And this will be the 3rd edition we've seen as organisers and we've run events for. So, we're already planning the first one with the goal of it being in August, assuming we get the rules in time and we can line it up in time.
I was deliberately not saying that in the intro just in case.
No, we're doing it anyway.
Right. All good.
So, I definitely think the game, both of the major game systems have evolved over that time, and we've seen them. They, in general, have gotten better, and the company that's running them has gotten better, and the way they engage with the community has gotten better. They're never going to be perfect. They're not going to please everyone. But from where we are when we started to today, I don't think we can complain as organisers or as participants in the community.
So, anybody who's listening, if you've been over to our house for dinner, you know that we sit around the table and we say something positive about the day that we've had. I'm just going to flip that on its head. Based on the last 5 years of being TOs and running OBSEC, Objective Secured, what is something that stands out as a low light for, the past 5 years, really?
A low light. I suppose most of my frustrations stem from, I don't know, I have moments where I get frustrated because software doesn't work or, we have to cancel an event through lack of interest, and I try and figure out why that's not, it doesn't happen that often, but it does happen.
Yeah.
And those are probably my low points because I'm trying to figure out what the community wants.
Yeah.
And it's
How we can
something,
give it to them.
it's something that I see organisers do around the world, and they put an event on that they want to go to, but that's not necessarily what the rest of the community wants to go to. And then the event fails or doesn't break even, and then it's the community's fault, not the organiser. And I'd rather cancel an event, accept the fact that I've misjudged what people were willing to do or what they want to do, and rework it and try again another day, than persevere with it. And, we did it for a couple of events where we ran it 2 or 3 years in a row before we killed it. But being able to accept that we're not always right and we do get things wrong, and then rework it and try and make it work the next time. Like the Heresy events, we've never quite gelled with what that needs to look like. And yet other groups have succeeded in running Heresy events. So, yeah, I feel like there's probably where most of my low points stem from, is me going, what did we do wrong and how do we make it better? What about you?
Yeah, I think my low points, just trying to hold people's frustrations and concerns,
Disconnect from it as well.
Yeah, look, I think
it's easy to take stuff personally.
It's really easy to take stuff personally. It's really easy to, we run events, and it's really easy to hear 100 positives, and it's the one negative that I hold on to.
Yeah, you
and
go home with going, oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that kind of stuff that's difficult, and especially, I do struggle with that. I struggle with with trying not to take it personally and knowing that you're not going to please everyone, and that's okay. But I do struggle with the idea that we're not enough. We're not good enough. We're not doing enough. We're not, I said that back at the beginning we were writing more blog posts and we were being more active. I'm, really upset that we haven't been able to do things that we've been wanting to do, and we just haven't. It's 5 years and we haven't gone as far as I had wanted to.
Yeah.
So that's probably my struggle the most, and But what we actually do when we sit around the dining table, what is your biggest positive of the last 5 years?
I've got a lot.
Oh, that's okay. Give
There's
me
a
your
lot
top 10.
There's a lot of really good memories I have from the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Announcing the winners at the first Masters event was really amazing. And then I published the games, and I got a message from one of the guys who's in the very first game, listening, and he listened to my commentary of that game and gone, I never even thought about what you said, and I'm watching it back, screaming at myself, going, how did you miss this? How did you not see what you were explaining? That was really affirming that we were onto something to be able to give back to the community as well. Playing at LVO in 2017 was an amazing experience, seeing how they run the convention over there. I met some amazing people. I had people come and introduce themselves to me that I'd never met before. I didn't even have any context for, but they knew us and they knew me. Partly from Worlds and Radio, partly from what we've been doing with OBSEC at the time. I made a friend in Lawrence from Tabletop Tactics at that event, despite the bastard seizing on me.
One day you'll get over that.
He owes me a game.
Should have taken an army.
And then, we've run some of the biggest events WA's ever seen. We launched Show, and all the while my gaming has dropped off significantly over the last 5 years in terms of, I was playing weekly with a close friend up until sort of 2012, and then it slowly petered off through 2012 through 2015. And then as we ran more events, I was getting less table time. But the fact that every now and again I get to go out and play at an event run by someone else, I don't get treated any differently than before we started running events. I was really concerned when I first started going to tournaments after we'd started running them, particularly after the first 18 months or 2 years of events, that I'd be treated as the TO who was playing rather than as another player, and that didn't happen. And that was really nice because I can go to an event.
I'm more worried that you would act like the TO that was playing rather than you'd be treated like it.
No, I'm quite happy to ask questions as much as the next person because it's not on me to make those calls. Yeah. But I was also aware that there would potentially be people who would defer to me at the table, if that makes sense, because we put ourselves in a position where we run these events, and as such we're the authority at these events, and we ran so many of them in rapid succession over that sort of 2-3 year period. I felt like there was a possibility that people would just start going, okay, Mike said it, so it's fine. And then if I get something wrong as a player, then that gives us a negative impression as organisers and a negative impression of me as a player. And that hasn't happened. So that's been really affirming for me that I can go back and play in the local community without worrying about that sort of thing. So, yeah, I've had a whole bunch of awesome games. I got to go and play with the Toy Soldier Cartel. I got to go and play with the Snake Eyes Squad. I've met some amazing people, not just overseas, but locally. We've had some awesome people people we'd never met before. The last show, one of the guys from Bustleton, David, came up. We'd never met him before in his life, and he's come up and he's helped set up and carry and lift and all the rest of it. And he's been involved. He was part of the recording for the last Harlequin episode. There's a whole bunch of people across all of the clubs who, as we've tried to do more in the community, have approached us without us knowing who they were and offered to help and support and be part of what we were trying to build. And that's really affirming that people could kind of see what we were trying to achieve. So, Warhammer Heroes is another great example. That was really cool to be awarded that, and while it wasn't a trip to Adepticon to receive the awards, it was still affirming that, the community recognised what we were doing and supported that. And that's, that kind of validates a lot of the positive stuff we hear and also helps drown out the negative, which is important because, like you said earlier, sometimes it's easier to hear the negatives than the positives.
Yeah, it really is. I
Sort
think
of,
it's human nature.
It is. What about you, though?
How many am I allowed?
Well, I've just rambled. I haven't picked a number.
Yeah. I think it's about, there are so many positives, like you say, and the meeting different people and the amazing generosity of the people who are part of the community, having that sense of community, having people tell me that they're alive because of the events that we run. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to get over that people... I've had a couple of people who have said they now feel like they fit.
Yeah.
And that's just so incredibly powerful. And obviously I've spent my whole life working in mental health, so that for me, I don't think I'm probably ever going to get over. But really it's about the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a good group of people that we see at these events, and some of them it's every event, some of them it's every other event, some of them it's once or twice a year. But it's always good to see them, and they're always welcoming and supportive and generous. Yeah.
We have, as you said, you were speaking about David, who came up to help with show last year. We had Marcus, who came up as well. Again, someone who we'd never met before, but who offered to volunteer his time to come and help out. We had however many people who help out at show, particularly running things for us, and show this year was cancelled, and it turns out to be that was a good choice, but people had booked time off work to be there to be able to help us set up because, well, I think after they saw the videos they thought that we may die if we had to do all the setup and pack up ourselves again. But so many people volunteer so much of their time in order to try and make this work, and I think it's just really awesome. And I think we live in a time where people can be quite selfish and are used to, people are used to things happening now, and they're used to things happening for them in the way that works for them. And I think it's really beautiful to see so many people so prepared to give and to share so freely with no expectations in return.
We still get people who come and help set up and pack up at every event.
I am so appreciative.
And it's funny, some of those players who come at the start, they finish helping set up, and then they come and say, look, I can't hang around at the end of the day. I'm really sorry, I can't help pack up. I've got to leave because I've got X, Y, and Z on. Is that okay? And you go, yeah, that's fine, dude.
Seriously, thank you so much for coming and helping with what you can.
But the apologetics of that, because they feel like they want to be involved and support that, and that's pretty amazing. And
they sort of know that it's really difficult for us to do that by ourselves, and they want this to work as much as we do. So they're, I guess, doing what I said to you way back at the beginning, putting their money where their mouth is and turning up, showing up and helping out in ways that they can. So, but I am really appreciative of all the people, and I think they're good people, and when
all the negativity I see online, there's just never been my experience.
It hasn't been mine either.
Tournament players are this, that and the other. Not just locally, but around the world. I've never seen that stuff happen. And I'm sure it does happen, but it certainly doesn't happen in the volume that some players seem to think it does.
And I think it is, as with everything, there are extremists in every single culture.
Yeah.
And so there are extremists in a gaming culture as well, where you do get a small minority of gamers who are that win at all costs kind of gamer. And I do mean that in the win at all costs.
Yep. And they're also the ones that look down their nose at women who come into the community and behave poorly when they're winning or losing.
Yeah, that's it. And so they're the people who give gamers a bad name, in the same way that it's the extremist minority in any culture that gives that particular culture a bad name.
Yeah.
I think
I've shared the room with thousands of gamers, and I reckon I could count on one hand over my 20 years of tournaments how many games I've either seen or been involved in that I've gone, I don't want to play you again.
Yeah.
I reckon it'd be less than 5. And off the top of my
head, I
head,
reckon it's probably more than that, because I think I could probably come up with a number about the same. So yeah, but I was just going to say, when we first started OBSEC, I wasn't coming to events So the first Masters, I was there for a small portion of the day and not most of it. And then as we
That quickly changed.
Yeah, well, and that's what I was just going to say. Then we ran First Blood was the next event just a couple of months after. And I was there for the very beginning for the setup and then left to go and parent. And then it was, by then I knew more people in the room. So I was going around saying goodbye to more people that I knew. By the third or fourth event, I'm like, by the time I finish saying goodbye, I've got to drive back to come help pack up. I might as well just stay. So I feel like I'm friends with all of these people that...
You're definitely part of the community now, even though you maybe don't play the game. You play other games, like we just played Ticket Ride again today, and we played Marvel Crisis yesterday, and like you still do gaming.
Apparently I'm going to be playing He-Man in
Absolutely. Masters of the Universe. Absolutely.
Did you say Universe?
Universe.
Masters of the Universe?
No, I slurred my words because it's getting late. And I've still got to edit this before midnight. Yeah, the community, I'm really proud of what we've achieved with the community and in conjunction with the community. So, yeah, that's your excellent adventure for tonight. And it's been an excellent adventure for us.
Should we wrap it up here and just quit?
Quit while we're ahead.
Yeah. What do you think?
Look, I've got bookings.
On-air decision?
I've got bookings from now until January 2021, so we're stuck at least until January 2021. And on that little fine, we'll wrap it here and back in just a second. So 5 years has been and gone. Not 5 years for the podcast. We worked that out a little while ago in terms of episodes and whatnot for you and I together. Episode 11 from memory.
Yes. Plus one prior to
plus,
that.
Plus, one or two prior. But
yeah.
this format was episode 11. So I wonder what month that was.
We did work that out then as well.
Did we? Good thing I've now got a spreadsheet. February is the answer to that question.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it was February 16th, 2 years ago.
February 15th, 2018. So I'm just having a quick look at it now going, I wonder whether there's the episode that we were talking about with coping with change is actually episode 13, and it's dated the 14th of March 2018. It'll also be on YouTube. It'll probably be easy to find on YouTube in some cases because a lot of the podcasts apps only keep the last 10 episodes.
We just go to our website, which is objectivesecured.com.au, and troll through the...
Episode 13, and it was published on the 14th of the 3rd, 2018. Yep. So if you're feeling the urge to go and look at what we suggested about coping with change way back when...
I'm sure all of the coping mechanisms that we talked about then will still be relevant.
Oh, look, I have no idea what that episode is going to be like.
Breathe through it. Journal. Perhaps try some mindfulness, which would involve painting, just in case you don't know.
Yeah, well, maybe.
Yeah, maybe not. Depends on the weather, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, actually. You have no idea about the complexities of spray paint. You can't just go out and spray with it.
Oh, no, I do. Apparently, it has to be exactly 27.3 degrees. The wind has to be blowing in north-northeasterly direction, but only for 5 kilometres per hour or less. There can't be any humidity in the air. There can't
Look,
be
I know you're being facetious, but you're not far off, to be perfectly honest. I've sprayed in bad weather before, and you get if it dries too soon out of the can or too late out of the can, or it's too humid and there's too much moisture and it doesn't dry quick enough on the model, you can get a grainy effect. The paint can run. I'm not doing that on a $3,000 kit.
With a $30-something can of spray paint.
I'm not ruining it and risking it when there's the chance that I'm going to end up having to try and put it in stripper and clean it.
So instead, we're just going to leave it as a SpongeBob SquarePants model.
That's not true. I've got my spray paint now. Look, the weather's cleared up today. Hopefully by the weekend it'll have cleared up more and I can finish the undercoats.
Really? So there's not still a sponge with a face painted on it that our son stuck on the top of the Titan?
I don't know. Yeah. That's definitely not there. That's definitely gone. No, it's anyone who's listening to this will understand that you can't just go out and spray paint when it's cold and wet.
Oh, darling, anybody who's listening to this knows that you have been making excuses for 18 months now.
Look, it is an intimidating kit. I'm really concerned I'm going to finish it and then go, I'm not happy with it. That's my biggest hurdle, because if I paint a squad of Harlequins and I don't like them, it's a $65 box of Harlequins, and I can go, I don't like those, I'm just going to buy another one. If I ruin the Titan, the psychology there is me going, if I don't paint it, I can't ruin it. If I can't ruin it, then I don't have to worry about not being happy with it and then wanting to buy another one. You know what I mean? Like, there's...
Are you happy with it at the moment?
No.
Does it bring you joy?
No.
No. So if you ruin it, you're no worse, are you?
Yes, because then I'm out $3,000. Look, I know that it doesn't make any sense to you. I get that.
So what do we need to do to work you through this fear?
I don't know. I don't even know how to begin, to be perfectly honest.
How to begin what?
Painting the damn thing. It doesn't fit in the airbrush booth for a start. So, yeah, I know that there are mental hurdles there that I'm trying to overcome. And it's this
really hard not to take you through a process of...
Yeah. I've done it with the other Titans as well. Mm-hmm. This is just the most expensive. So, yeah, I'm having to try and work through that process. All the components are in place now. And now we've got 9th edition about to drop, and I know that's going to affect me as well.
Why?
Because I'm going to want to build an army for 9th ed.
You are not building anything until that Titan's done.
All right, hopefully the weather clears up and I can get the bulk of the paint.
It was perfect weather today.
It was bloody not.
It was?
Too cold. 12 degrees this morning. Not good weather for spray paint.
What time was it 12 degrees? Because I guarantee you were not out of bed
when it
was 12 degrees.
I looked at the temperatures today.
It was beautiful today.
It was not.
Okay, we're not arguing over the weather on a podcast, but it was absolutely beautiful, and we're moving on. You are making
Fine,
excuses.
I will try and get more spray on it tomorrow. If the weather's good, I will try tomorrow. And I'll even publish...
Do or do not. There is no try.
And I'll even
Something
publish...
like that.
You got that right. Well done. I'll even publish photos on the website once I've put extra paint down. I'll do a before and after photo tomorrow. Assuming the weather's good.
Do we still have an OTP model in our freezer?
Yes, we do. It's been there a long time now.
We should get that out and finish that.
So yeah, we still do have these random things that occur in Objective Secured's world.
Oh yeah.
Wait until I start video recording these podcasts as well as recording them for audio.
Oh, I just had a conversation about that today.
Well, once the dungeon's all sorted, that's the plan. Have a camera rig set up and record it also that the YouTube video that goes up, instead of it just being a black screen with logos and stuff on it, will actually be the video.
I'm not getting rid of my Nana rug.
I'm more interested in how I'm going to edit it, to be honest.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Not that too much editing needs to be done these days. We've got a pretty good routine happening.
I don't know. There's just a whole lot of crap in this excerpt. How can we just scrap this start again and just say, well, thanks for listening. Goodbye, everyone.
Look, it is getting late and I still have to finish the edit to try and get this out before midnight. Mm-hmm. So we are going to wrap it up here. Thank you for everyone who supported us, come to an event, liked our Facebook page, shared a post, given us words of encouragement, done anything in relation to any of the events that we've run or stuff we've done online or shared or experienced, and who've laughed with us and agonized over things with
Laughed
us.
at us. Cried with us.
Pitched in and helped for small or large.
Yeah.
There are so many people out there that the last 5 years wouldn't have been possible without. And we really appreciate each and every one of you. And I'm not going to name names because...
Oh, gosh, no.
That'd be a very, very long list and I would definitely miss someone. So...
If your name starts with any letter in the alphabet...
You probably helped us.
About you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing you again really soon at another event when
oh my goodness,
the
in
world...
person with more than 8... Although I am looking forward to seeing 8 people.
Yeah, we do have our patrons events happening over the next few weeks with pools of 8 players going into a final. Hopefully by the end of June we'll have the final organised. Mm-hmm. And then hopefully by that stage we'll have 9th edition announced as a date, and then we can run an event in August and see a whole bunch of you in person. Yeah, WATC is going to be November, December.
No, but I mean use our WATC date for a 9th ed. I still want to call it 9th age.
I've done that on the on the Patrons podcast.
I
We were talking about
fun of you for it.
You did. Anyway, we're done. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll hopefully see you again really soon.
Yeah, thank you. Everything he said, I say as well. It has been wonderful getting to know everyone over the last 5 years, and obviously there are people listening that we haven't got to know yet, but we look forward to meeting you one day in person or electronically. I don't know if that's the
I've
right
got
thing
plenty
to
of
say.
electronic friends as a result of this. It's great.
Yeah, me too. I do get this. Do you want to wish this person a happy birthday? I don't know. Remind me how I know them again.
Well, you're in. At least all of mine are gaming related. You're in so many different groups at the moment.
that's
You
it.
know so many different people from so many different communities.
So many different countries.
At least with mine, I look at them and go,
Must be a gamer.
they're definitely gamers.
No, but we really do appreciate having so many people who are part of our world. So, yeah, thanks very much. We look forward to seeing you in person at gaming events and or online for whatever. And happy gaming, everyone.
You've been listening to the Objective Secured podcast. If you'd like to get in touch, you can visit our website, objectivesecured.com.au. You can find us on Facebook, Facebook/Objective Secured, or you can email us, obsec@optusnet.com.au. Thanks for listening.